Here. All right, so we're going to talk about buyer mastery today. And I just handed out to y'all a checklist. Does everybody have your checklist? Is there any left over? Cool. We have some people that are going to come a little bit late. So if there's some people that come in late, I want to make sure they get one of those. Our checklist that you have there, we're going to work our way through that throughout the day. What we did is we built that for basically the buyer journey. From the very first encounter to after move-in, what are all the necessary steps for the buyer to go through their journey? And so what I have experienced is if you want to have an incredible customer experience, what looks easy on the outside is somewhat regimented and structured on the inside. One time I was flying baby moon. And I was, my wife Karen and I, we were going to go to Nantucket. So you fly into Boston, and when you land in Boston, they pick you up on like a little pedal jumper plane, and they fly you out to the island in Nantucket. And it's not that far. So we were standing out there at the airport, and they said, "Hey, your pilot's actually about to land here in a second. You're just going to jump on that plane, and you're going to go back to Nantucket." So he lands, and he was like in the process of turning around. They're like, "All right, go ahead and go out there." It was just my wife and I in this little bitty tiny plane. So he shut off his engine, and as we were getting on, he was getting off, and he just kind of walked out the steps. And I was sitting there thinking, come on, man, like, let's go. And he's walking all over the plane, and he's got his clipboard, and he's checking everything. And he got inside, and he said, "Do you want to sit in the cockpit with me?" So I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So I got to sit in the cockpit with him. And here he is with his checklist on his clipboard, and he's checking the pedals, checking the steering wheel, checking on the dials. And I said, a part of me was a little annoyed because he just landed, and I was ready to get there. We've been waiting on him, and it was about another 20 minutes. And I was like, "Hey, man, can't we just get going?" And he's like, "No, I got to go through my checklist, make sure everything's good to go." And I said, "Yeah, you just landed. Like, you're fine. Like, let's just take off and go." He said, "I've been doing this long enough that I never, ever, ever take off until I have gone through my checklist. I don't care if I just landed or not. If the plane was good on the land, something could have happened. I do it as a standard no matter what." And I was impressed with his vigilance to a process. He was a very experienced pilot. He said that he had tens of thousands of hours or whatever that was. And I said, "You do this every single time?" He's like, "Every time without fail, whether I have someone with me, whether it's just me, whether it's my family. I don't care what the situation is. I never, ever don't go through my checklist." So I thought, man, if the pilot's going to go through a checklist, if the pilot's going to make sure that everything that he has is tight and in place to make sure that his passengers get somewhere safely, we should have the same level of consideration, the same level of care for our passengers, our clients. And so what is easy for the client's experience is very regimented and structured on the back end. So what you have there is our buyer checklist. And what I want to do is I want to start off, and we're not going to move through this checklist quickly. This will be throughout the day. And at different points in this, I'm going to bring us back to the screen and different assets and tools that we use for our customers. So let me pull up on the screen this view. Let me see if I can't zoom in on this. All right. So we have basically two phases. The first phase is whenever a buyer is ready to start. And then the second phase is when they go into contract. Now, I want to give you one more quick disclaimer. Not every buyer is created equal. Some buyers come in hot and ready. They are pre-approved. They know exactly what they want. I remember one time I had a sign out for a listing, and I had a buyer on a Saturday calls me off the sign and says, "Hey, I'm calling about your listing on such and such address." And I said, yeah. And I was telling them all the information, and they cut me off mid-sentence like, "Hey, we don't care about that house. We actually like a house a couple streets over, and we have called the agent, and the agent has not answered. Will you go unlock the door for us?" And it was on a Saturday, and I said, "Yeah, I mean, I guess I can." I met them over there, unlocked the door, and they're like, "We love it. We're ready to make an offer." And I said, well, have you been pre-approved? And they're like, we don't need to be pre-approved. We've got cash and we're ready to write a check right now. I was like, wow, who are these people? It was the fastest, quickest. I mean, like we're talking about within 45 minutes of the phone call to seeing the property to got back to write the offer. Within 45 minutes, we were writing an offer. Within like an hour, we're under contract. And I thought, yeah, this never happens. So there are aspects of this checklist that are in basically written in a way that for a client that comes in without pre-approval, that doesn't know what they want, it's in step by step for that type of buyer. Because if an easy, quick, qualified buyer comes in, it may be a rushed delivery. But I wanted to make sure that we did not overlook sometimes that people need to be handheld and need to go through the proper steps to get to the closing table. So this checklist is written in its ideal form to cover all types of buyers. And it's also written in a way that for Scout, this is the way that a lot of our buyers come through. So I want to give you the structure of this, and then we'll start to dive in one by one. The first thing is like, who does the task? And so typically in real estate, we, as an industry, have historically operated as independent contractors who do every aspect of the client representation. And so what our view at Scout is that we want to be an interdependent team that has people who are helping in different aspects of the transaction. So out beside the task list, we have put who is responsible for this. Now, just so you also know, is we use some software systems that these tasks live on. These are not done manually. So you can use this for your own peace of mind, or if you want to use this for yourself, if you keep physical client folders. But if you're wondering where this lives in a practical application, this lives on a software that our team works. So you have the who, and then you have the task. So the first thing is you'll see schedule a buyer consultation with a buyer's agent. Schedule a buyer consult with the buyer's agent and the buyer consultant. The next thing is we say we want to email a lender intro. So a lot of times we rely upon the in a sense, the buyer to find their own lender. Sometimes we give them a couple recommendations. We want to make a strong recommendation to the lender. So that typically is either via email or via text. And those are, hey, Mike, meet Skip here. Skip has come to us, and we give a quick overview of who Skip is, where they came from. Hey, Skip, this is Mike. This is why we recommend. So there is a very, very, very warm introduction with all contact information. I don't think it's healthy just to say, hey, here's Mike's number, give him a call. Mike, have they called you? 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 No. I want to make sure that both of them have been introduced properly and they have both of them have the information to make that connection. The next thing is we send a buyer questionnaire through dotloop. And so we're going to cover that in a second, but we want them to get that buyer questionnaire early because we want them to think through what's important to them about the home. Again, we're going to cover that in the next thing. But we'll get right here to the buyer phone review, and this is where we're going to stop. The buyer phone review, whenever a lead comes in, almost always I get, if I'm going to get a buyer call, it's going to say, hey, Jonathan, this is Lindy. I have been referred to you by a past client, or hey, I'm a friend of yours. Somewhere along the way, there's someone that reaches out, whether that's a referral or past client. And in the olden days, and this is why you do not, I do not want our agents to deviate from our plan. In the olden days, I used to just wing it. Somebody calls me and they say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house. That's great. That's great. When do you want to buy? Cool. Well, we should grab a cup of coffee next week and we should get together and look at some houses. I mean, that's the way I used to do it. Very loose, very relational, very cool, very casual. Didn't want to feel pressure. Didn't want to be like a salesperson. And that bit me in the butt so many times it's not even funny. The more casual and cool and relaxed I was, typically it gave a bad start for the relationship. And the second thing was we kind of drifted into representation. So I remember specifically, I was off of Edmondson Pike, off of Old Hickory Boulevard in Edmondson years ago, looking at a townhome community. And I got a phone call one day from someone that was interested in buying. They were a referral from a past client. And I remember driving and I grabbed the receipt that was in my cup holder from like I don't know, Taco Bell or something. And I wrote their name and number on the back of the seat. And I was like, yeah, I can definitely help you buy a house. No big deal. And when are you looking to buy? And just chatted them up. And I'm like, cool, I'll give you a call. Okay, fast forward about a week later, and I remembered, it just hit me. Oh my gosh, I hadn't talked to that person. And I could not find that receipt anywhere. I go back to my car and I cannot find it anywhere. I'm looking all over for it, nothing. And I couldn't remember where they came from. It was very frantic because, you get a lead, you got somebody on the hook, you don't want to lose them. So a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks go by, about a month goes by, and I still couldn't find it, couldn't remember who they were, couldn't remember where they come from. And finally one day, this was my girlfriend who we ended up getting married, Karen. She came over to my house, and I think we were watching college football or something on one Saturday, and she was cleaning out her purse on the coffee table. And as she was cleaning out her purse, I see like this crumpled up piece of paper with my handwriting on it. And I grabbed it and I was like, hey, that's my receipt. And what she had done is, I guess we had gone on a date that night, and she grabbed the receipt and blotted her lips and threw it in her purse. And I was like, I've been looking all over this. This is the client that I've been trying to call back. So I called the client back and I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry. My girlfriend blotted her lips on the receipt. And, and they're like, man, I've already bought a house. And I was like, oh, man, that really stinks. So anytime that you have an inconsistent way to start working with someone, it could very easily go awry. And I have so many stories of just times to where I would get a call. Somebody's looking to buy a house. Oh, yeah, I can help you. Why don't we go get coffee? Listen, I'm out of town the rest of this week, but why don't we go grab some coffee next Tuesday? Next Tuesday rolls around, and they call me and like, hey, actually, I need to cancel our appointment for coffee. We were able to find a house over the weekend. What? Yeah, we went to model home and found what we want. And oh my gosh, I didn't know that you were out there like actually looking. And other times people would say, yeah, I've already talked to their agent and we're going to work with them. Oh my gosh, I didn't know you were interviewing other agents. So if you don't have a standard starting point with someone, specifically the buyer phone interview, I think that is a gross misstep. So our recommendation is to start off with this tool right here, the buyer phone interview. And I think so much so in the buyer phone interview that if you're starting off, like let's say that you get a phone call and that someone says, hey, I'm calling, I've been referred to you, looking to buy a house, can you help me? What I would typically do in that scenario is to affirm the call and say, yes, I absolutely can help you. But listen, I didn't recognize your number, and I'm so thankful you called, but I didn't recognize your number. Is it okay if I wrap up my call or I wrap this call up really quickly, finish what I'm doing? I want to give you my undivided attention and let me call you back in 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever the time frame you need to get your buyer phone interview. I recommend having these with you. Like if you keep a book bag, I recommend keeping a stack of these things. But if you don't have it handy, I would strongly encourage you to get off of the call and not have that call unless you have a strong starting point. I think that you can honor, thank you for calling me. I did not recognize your number. I want to give you my undivided attention, and I need about 5, 10, 15 minutes to be able to call and give you my undivided attention. I think that this is that important to get off that call. So let me pull up this buyer phone interview on the screen for us as we jump in today on this. All right, so this buyer phone interview, I don't look at this as scientific in nature, like to where you're going like, okay, I've got 14 questions for you, number 7, number 8, number 9. I don't recommend just, going point by point. What I would recommend is to speak in very general terms. So for example, I'm so thankful you called. Tell me a little bit about what you're hoping to accomplish. And typically I will throw out a series of just very top of mind thought questions like, tell me a little bit about your circumstance, what you're hoping to accomplish, when you're looking to buy, how much you're looking to buy, what you have done to this point. Like I'm just throwing out a number of questions just to get them talking so I can start taking notes, right? So once I'm getting them talking, I'm going to start to fill in the blanks. Whenever they kind of talk themselves out and like, yeah, so that's kind of what we're thinking. Like once you kind of realize like they don't have anything else to say, then I'm going to start to come back and fill in the blanks on this form specifically like, hey, You never mentioned, do you own a house or are you renting a house? Oh, yeah, we actually own a house. Okay, do you need to sell that house first? So my overview of this phone interview is to get them talking, start taking notes, and then start to fill in the blanks. One of the things that is very important, you'll probably hear me talk about this a number of times throughout the day because we're going to talk about buyer consultations and buyer questionnaires. We're going to talk about digging 3 layers deep. So what I've done here is I've given you the most important starting questions, but this is not comprehensive. I mean, there's going to be so many types of buyers that you're going to be talking to that there's no way of knowing all the nuances. So for example, if someone says we're looking to relocate to Nashville, there's probably 3 layers deep that you need to be digging on every question. So I look at each of these questions almost as the starting point. So for example, what is your desired location? Where are you going to be working? So if someone says, we want to be in the Brentwood area, where are you going to be working? Cool Springs. Cool Springs, Brentwood. Help me understand something. Why Brentwood? Well, we got some friends that live there. Okay. Do you know much about the area? Like would Forest Hills or Bellevue be a consideration? No, we don't know. We're open to options. Like you have to think in terms of every answer that you get, there's a question behind the question. And I want to dig 3 layers deep. If someone were to talk about where they're going to be working and they say, we want to be within 15 minutes of work, why is that the case? Would you be open to 20 minutes commute time, 25 minutes? Almost always I find that people's initial answers to any questions are very surface and they're not the end all be all. But I find that it's very important in the phone interview is to, in a sense, press the boundaries as broad as you possibly can so that you truly uncover what's their felt needs, like that's a little bit below the surface. It's not so topical. So let me go through this phone review as an overview, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to use this in practical application. So for starters is their name, the address if they own a home. I want to know where they live. I want to know their phone number of both the husband and the wife. I want to know their email addresses because there's been times to where I've gotten this. I have lost clients over this. Here's why it struck this way. I may have talked to a friend of a friend and it was their golfing buddy just to find out the wife is actually the decision maker and she has a friend that she wants to work with. And I was only corresponding with the husband, and all along the way, it was a house divided on who they were going to work with just to find out that I didn't even get the job because I never brought her into the communication. I never emailed her the list of houses. She was, in a sense, outside. And those are very easily avoidable things whenever you're working through this. Like, hey, you never told me your wife's name. You never told me how many kids do you have? What's their ages? Because I want to start to speak to the kid's first name. So help me understand why are you so excited about getting a bigger backyard? Is that so Jack and Sarah can play? Oh yeah, they got this jungle gym that they want to buy and we want to have a dog in the backyard. How old is Jack and Sarah? Like you want to make this call as personal as it possibly could. If we don't have this template, we may get ourselves into a buyer consultation and we don't even know the kids' names versus, hey, are Jack and Sarah excited about the move coming up? No, he is. She's not so much. Why not? Oh, she really loves her friend next door. So as you're showing houses, if Sarah's there, you're like, hey, you can pay her more attention in a very personal way. If we don't have this type of starting point, if we just have the back of a Taco Bell receipt, then that's not going to be as strong of a conversation. So we want to know who referred you to me. Part of the reason why on who referred you is you need to be sending a thank you letter as soon as you get off the call. If you want referrals to continue to come in, you need to reward the behavior that you want to see perpetuated. So if someone says so-and-so referred, I want to send a thank you letter for the referral and a gift card. If they actually come into a consultation, I want to call and give them feedback. Hey, I just want to let you know that I just had my consultation with your friends. They were incredible people. Hey, I just want to let you know that we're out looking for houses and I think we found the one today. Hey, I want to let you know we just passed the inspection period. Hey, I want to let you know we just closed. Like I had a call last night for about 20 minutes from a referral source, thanking them for the referral and no more than we get off the call, he's already referred someone else that's going to start looking. So I have communicated with him probably 3 or 4 times throughout the entire process, because who referred the McCanns was a guy named Tyson. So I've communicated with Tyson 3 or 4 times throughout the process. And even last night when we closed last Thursday, I'm calling Tyson to let him know how much I appreciate it, how much it means to the growth of our business. And he has already referred someone else last night. So when you're asking for who referred, yes, this is certainly triangling for trust and rapport building with these people. If it's someone that you know really, really, really well, you may want to go a little bit deeper and tell them a colorful story. I use the word triangling for trust, and I'll give you this as a quick frame of reference. That terminology is basically you have 3 different people. And let's say for talking purposes, this is the potential client or lead. This is you, the realtor, and you don't really have a relationship with them. There's separation. Like they're connecting with you, but there's no type. This person, the person who referred, this referral partner has the relationship. So when we talk about triangling for trust, we want to speak to the commonality in this referral partner. So right here, we talk about who referred you. How do you know them? How long have y'all known each other? I'm curious, whenever they referred you to me, what did they say? I want to know what level of connectivity that they have. Sometimes that connectivity is super strong and there can be a great faster connection here. So I'll be like, oh my gosh. Yeah, listen, Craig has been a friend of mine since high school. I was in his wedding. I have a hilarious story to share with you whenever we meet. Like Craig is, and so if there is a point of contact, I can, in a sense, go deeper in this newfound relationship by solidifying, yes, Craig and I are very close friends for a long time. Here's what he's meant to my life. How do you know Craig? The more that I lean into this referral, it only then starts to strengthen this bridge right here. Does that make sense? So when we talk about triangling for trust, you just don't blow past a question. You spend time in that question. Who referred you to me? Hey, I'm curious. What did they say that led you to call? Well, they said that you this, they said you this, they said you this. Yeah, I'm really thankful that they said that, because I had the privilege of working with their family 2 years ago. And they probably said that because when we were negotiating, we had a home inspection, and that inspection got a little bit bumpy. And here's how we navigated that home inspection. So they probably said that because, we were able to make it through. So I want to build this bridge. There has been plenty of realtors, myself included, who have gotten a lead on the phone that never saw their face. You've gotten a lead on the phone, you never closed them. And the reason why is because they are testing and checking, do I want to work with you? Do I want to work with you? Are you reliable? Are you communicative? Do we have a connection? So I can't stress enough, when you have these questions, you have to dig 3 layers deep and spend some time building this early bridge. Building rapport is really what we're talking about. Any questions or thoughts on that and the importance of that? Skip?
The part you said about you were referring back to your referral, your experience in the inspection. To me, that just says a little bit more about the work professionalism and the work you do. Because, so many people think you do something on MLS and get 10 offers and it's sold in 3 days. And so why are we paying you so much? Well,
this helps with that.
There's a lot more to it. There's negotiation, the inspection, and all those things. I think that was a very good point to me.
So
it's a good way to show the things you're doing beyond just what people perceive.
It's not as easy as you might think to be able to sell or demonstrate your competency. And so that's why I would ask a question like that. What did they say that caused you to call me? Oh yeah, this is what happened in that negotiation. This is what happened in that inspection. This is what happened when I was working with them. So I want to affirm my competency whenever this lead has never got the the time for me to demonstrate it. Does that make sense? Also, the other nugget that I would point out is there's a extreme power in building rapport with someone as you're triangling for trust in telling a story or getting them to laugh. Like I have found most often we're just straight off the call. Like we don't even know each other. This is a warm lead because they've been referred, but I have to get some bit of rapport. So if I can tell them a story about our mutual connection or mutual rapport, especially if I can get them to laugh, like, oh my gosh, if you know Craig the way I know Craig, he is such a jokester. Let me tell you a funny story about him. If I can get them to chuckle, like we were starting to gain rapport. So then we move into things that are a little bit more substantial, and this is about the overall details of their move, and then we'll talk about the home. So the details of their move, we want to talk about where do they currently live. We want to talk about, do they own or rent? Why are you moving? Are you pre-approved through a mortgage? Actually, let's start with this top part. Where do you currently live? When I talked about digging 3 layers deep, where do you currently live? Do you like the area? Do you want to stay in the area? No, we're wanting to get out. Okay, so when you say get out, how far away is out? If someone's in Davidson County, they're like, we don't like the taxes, we want to get out of Davidson County. Okay, just so I hear you clearly, anywhere in Davidson County you want to be. You want to get Sumner County, Wilson County, Rutherford County, Robertson County. Yeah, we for sure will not be in Davidson County. Okay, that's helpful to know. Do you own or rent? We own. Do you need to sell? Because this is not like, there's not additional questions here. Do you need to sell before you buy? Okay, then as we meet, there has been times, guys, where I've gone into a consultation, and unfortunately, I was going for a buyer consultation, and I did not know that they needed to sell before they buy. And I believe in those meetings, we need to be talking about selling and buying at the exact same time. Otherwise, we are going to have some missteps. So do they own or rent? I can't remember who it was. One of our agents the other day, there was an issue to where I think it was maybe Peter. Where's Peter? Yeah, the rent doesn't end until November. That's a problem because in the phone interview, you would have found out they rent. When is your lease end? November. Okay, is there an early termination fee? Are you willing to pay the early termination fee? Okay, if the answer is no, then we don't even need to put you in the car in the first place. So if you fail to go through this system right here, right? If we don't follow the standard and we are not intuitive enough to say, okay, this is science. There's a few questions scientifically we need to ask, but the art comes into what's the question behind the question? I need to dig a couple layers deep. If they said that they rent, I can't give you like 10 questions to ask from there because this would be like a never-ending page. Okay, you rent. Well, when does that lease end? Is there an early termination fee? Would you be willing to break the lease? Would you be willing to pay? What if I paid your early termination fee? Would that help you move? Okay, we probably don't even need to spend time looking at houses if we're a dead-end street, if November is whenever you're going to be able to move out. And we've been looking for months and months and months looking at houses, writing offers just to find out you can't get out till November. That would have been evident in your first 5 minutes in your first phone call if you follow the standard, right? So why are you moving? This is important. So I had a couple one time that was really frustrated in the home buying process because they kept getting beat out in multiple offers. They actually had gotten beat out on like 6 or 7 offers. And finally, they're like, we just need to take a break. We're so done with this. Like, we're just discouraged. I understand where they're coming from. It can be very discouraging when you're getting beat out. But I remembered in our buyer phone interview right here, why are you moving? There was 2 things that they said right here why they're moving. The first one was there was renters in their apartment complex that were above them that were making tons of noise and playing music and having dance parties, and they were like, it was just never ending on top of us. Secondly is there was someone who lived next door that constantly smoked and it kept coming through the air vents. and they were pregnant, having a kid, and they did not want to have a baby with smoke coming in the air vents with noise upstairs. So fast forward a couple months later, we're getting beat out in offers, and they were discouraged. They just want to take a break. And I was like, guys, I understand. I mean, it's very discouraging. I really was hoping we could get you under contract, because I remember how important it was to get out because of the people upstairs and the people next door. And I know that we have about 3 more months until that baby's here. And I know how important it was for you not to have that baby in that smoking environment, in that noisy environment. Yeah, we probably need to keep looking. we need to keep looking. But you have to have a point of reference, like an anchor point to draw back. That was painful for them. That's leverage, right? And no matter how bad this market was and they're getting beat out, this was more of a driving pain point than them getting beat out on offer. We ended up getting the next one worked out, and it worked out great. They got in the house and all things worked. But if I never asked the question, if I did not know what was driving their move, I would not be able to keep that focus. One time I did this in a listing. The lady was, she had, on the listing side of this, she had answered that it was important for her to sell because she wanted to get the money out of her house. She's always wanted a horse. She was retired, and she was going to get a horse and board this thing, and she's going to ride a horse. And it was going to be a pretty expensive horse, so she needed to get the money in the house. And she was not getting the offers that she hoped because she overpriced the house. Finally, she was frustrated, and she just wanted to take the house off the market. She's like, let's just take it off the market. You know, it just wasn't meant to be. Man, I hear you loud and clear. Let's get this thing off the market. Man, I really was hoping we could get that horse by Christmas. Yeah, me too. Well, we still can get you a horse by Christmas. I kept the attention on the horse. We got a price reduction, and we got the house sold. So you have to find what is the motivating factor of why people are making their decision, so you can keep coming back to this as a reference point if people get soft on their decision. Sometimes they forget the horse, or they forget the smokers. And whenever they get out there and they get beat in a multiple offer, or the house is not selling, they get discouraged, and that one fleeting emotion may cause you to have wasted a couple months of your time, right? The next thing is, are you pre-approved through a mortgage, and with whom? If they say yes and they give you an answer, do not stop there. This is where you dig 3 layers deep. Are you open to get other options? And the reason I'm asking that question is I find that if you have options, you're going to make a better informed decision upon getting a loan. You may get better terms. You may get better pricing. I'll tell you that the madness, or the thought behind the madness on this. If they're not a pre-approved through someone that I know, I doubt that they're truly pre-approved. One time I had a friend, and he owns a business. He is successful, but business owners' tax returns are not as cut and dry as most people's. And he had just purchased a building for his company. His company was doing well. I mean, I know this guy. He's a close friend. We looked for about 6 months. We got his house sold, got extended contract. We finally found the house. We wrote the offer, and we get into it, got the home inspection, got the appraisal, just to find out that this guy could not get approved for a loan. And I was like, what? You can't get approved for? He actually never could get approved for the loan, because he had said, this is what I make. Well, what he made last year and was not what he made the year before, and he had not filed his taxes. They were going off what he had stated, and he did a lot of deductions. And we literally had to drop out of the contract and had to wait another whole year for him to get his tax returns. His friend was the loan officer. His friend was just going off of what he said. So I put him in my car for 6 months, going off of what I trust him, and I trust him. And you know what? I go to my lender and I said, hey, I want you to do me a favor. I never, ever, ever want to put someone in the car if they cannot close on a house. So you are my backstop. I never even want to have a meeting face-to-face if you have not said they for sure can close. So can you do that? So my whole goal here is to make sure that my inside guy says for sure they will close. I don't care who you use at that point. I just wanted to make sure that we're not wasting one another's time. So no matter if they say they are pre-approved through loan, if they do have a lender's name, if they give you a lender's name, can you send me their number? I'd love to call them and talk with them just to get to know them for the process. I want to find out, have you fully underwritten this person, or have you, not just pre-approval, have you approved? So I want to dig 3 layers deep. I want them to get introduced to my lender. And the reason why is because I can find out whether or not they're going to actually be able to close. Almost always they end up using my lender because they have the best rates, best terms. He's easy to work with. We've never missed a closing date. But I find it, there has been times in the past where someone has used their own person and they actually did close. But because they were working with like Wells Fargo in Wisconsin, and that loan officer, he had no incentive to communicate clearly. He had no incentive to close on time. If he didn't close on time, well, I don't know you anyway. Like, you're not going to refer me business. If you send it to a referral source, well, I don't want to lose your business, so I'm going to make sure this thing closes on time. So you got to have your person. So by asking these questions, this helps you know how to navigate the conversation. What I've said in the past also in this is, hey, if I refer you to someone, to my lender, I believe that he could beat your, it's free. Whatever you send your lender, send my lender. And if he beats it, then take that documentation to your buddy and say, price match this thing, right? So I'm trying to help you, set you up for success. The next thing is, would you like for me to email you some of my preferred lenders? I get agreement here, whatever it takes to get a yes, because this now informs I need to send an email of introduction to the lender. From there, when do you need to be in your new home? And really what we're looking for is not like, yeah, we'd like to get in by sometime this summer. When is the absolute drop dead date? Thanksgiving. We want to have family in town. We got to be in by Thanksgiving. Okay, I want to know how long and how quick. I need to know my timeline. And I also want to know is, under what circumstance would you make a decision in the next week, 2 weeks, month? Because sometimes there's people who will look for months that are just trying to get a feel for the market, that you think that they're trying to make a buying decision. The answer is they're not. They're just trying to get a feel. So whenever you're allocating time to your clients, you need to know who is serious and hot and ready to make a decision and who's getting a feel. And if you get double booked, you need to know who you need to push. So right here is, when do you need to be in your next home? You're looking for the short term and the long term, the absolute dead deadline of move in. That means we need to be under contract on this date. And then how fast are you willing to get going? Right away. Okay, when you say right away, like this weekend, if you found the perfect house this weekend that meets your criteria, you would say yes, absolutely. Okay, great. Then you're serious. What is your desired location? And we're going to talk about this in the buyer consultation, but this desired location, it almost always, they'll tell you exactly their bullseye, but they're willing to make concessions. I want to know how broad they're willing to go. And we'll explain this in the buyer consultation, but their desired location, where they're going to work, do you need to sell your home and how much? These questions are, this question is important because when you meet with them in your buyer consultation, you may have to have a listing presentation as well as a buyer consultation. Almost always, I like to have the buyer consultation. If they're both in the same meeting, I want to talk about the buy side first. I want to talk about the sell side second. The reason why is I want that buy side of what they're looking for to pull them forward about making decisions, versus we get stuck talking about the value of their house. No, I think it's worth more. I need you to keep your eyes on where you're going, not on where you are. I look at this not as two separate transactions. I look at this as one transition. So to make it one transition, we need to look forward where we're going. And then how do we get there is we need to lose this house. It's time to cut the anchor. Okay. So then we get into the type of the home. I really don't want to dive in too much on this in this call. I do this in the consultation and in the questionnaire. So on what type of home, I just want to hear in their own words a broad overview. Again, we dive into this more in the consultation, which we'll spin here in a little bit. But I just want to hear in their own words. And then sometimes there's things that bubble up for the notes section. There's things that bubble up that are not here that you may need to go into deeper detail of, like, we've had horrible experiences with realtors before, so we're going to be interviewing people. That's really, really, really helpful to know that you're going to be interviewing agents. I want to make sure that I have put this right here that you're interviewing, okay? So then we come down to the bottom section. So the way that I do the phone review, typically it's around 10 or 15 minutes. It's not like a super long interview process. I don't even call it a buyer phone review. I'm just having a conversation. In this sheet, I'm asking questions. I'm not making any statements at all. It's like, keep in mind, it's an 80-20 conversation. You're speaking 20% of the time. They're speaking 80% of the time. You're asking questions the 20%. Okay? Only when you get to the very end do you start to make a statement. And I typically make a pretty strong line in the sand and take leadership. And always, this is the exact phrase I use. Here is what is going to happen next. Here's what's going to happen next. Like, I actually tell them this is what we're going to do. Because a lot of times agents really want to lead and really want to buy so bad that the tail wags the dog. The buyer gets everything on their own terms. And honestly, if the buyer is going to lead, they don't need you. So I think that if you're going to be a professional, you need to lead the client. And a great leadership is not getting your way. The great leadership is understanding what their expressed needs are, and being able to bring that to life. So a leader is able to ask the right questions and learn what this client is wanting and needing, and then guide them to what they want. But if you do not ever set the tone and say, here's what's going to happen next, I'm going to lead you, then you will have a really, really, really rocky relationship with that buyer from then on. And here is also something: if they are not going to follow your lead, you may consider firing them as a client or not ever accepting them. When we go through the buyer questionnaire here in a second, we're going to talk about expectations. And in that expectations portion, it's always a two-way street. Just because they want to buy a house does not mean that we have to work with them. The other day, Mackenzie and I had a client, or a lead, that we're going through this, and it was very, very, very evident that they were not going to allow us to lead. They're going to tell us how to do our job. It just is not worth it. And so we told them we're not going to work with them in a very polite, respectful way. We're happy to refer, and they were very upset and said they were going to leave a bad Google review. It's like, you weren't even a client. Like, you weren't a client because you would not allow us to do our job. It's like if I go in the dentist, like, no, doc, this is the way I want you to do this. Man, they're the professional. So at some point in time, you have to take a very strong leadership role in the relationship. So in this section right here, explain what happens next. The first thing is, I'm going to email you a buyer questionnaire. This buyer questionnaire is 2 pages. I'm going to go ahead and send this out. It's 2 pages, so make sure you get both sections. You keep both pages, if you don't mind giving Julian the 2. These are 2 pages. So the first thing is, I'm going to email you a buyer questionnaire. And I can't stress how important it is to set the expectations. You're telling them exactly what they need to do. I'm going to email you the buyer questionnaire for the buyer consultation. The next thing is, in that questionnaire, I want you, and if they're married, I want both of y'all to sit down and fill this out together. There has been some times to where I've had people come and only one of them filled out, and now they're tick for tat in the meeting, like, no, change that. I don't want that. Oh my God. Y'all obviously did not talk about this ahead of time. So instead of us having that type of situation, I'm going to email the buyer questionnaire. I'm going to get both of their email addresses. I want you guys to sit down together and fill this out, or y'all fill it out separate, make your own, and y'all come and we're going to put it together. But I want to make sure that we both had the chance, or that you both had the chance to look at this. The next thing is, I'm going to email you my preferred lender. I want you to have a conversation with them. You need to get pre-approved before our consultation. Absolutely cancel any meeting with any lead if they have not gotten pre-approved. Cancel the meeting. And I tell them this right here. I'm going to email you the lender. We're going to schedule our meeting for Thursday. But I want to let you know, if for some reason you cannot get pre-approved, I think it would be important for us to go ahead and plan to cancel that meeting ahead of time if you don't get pre-approved. If you don't do your part, let's cancel the meeting. And here's why. We are going to have a very meaningful conversation around values of homes. And I try to intentionally get people lost a little bit and confused so that they have this conversation with the lender. Here's what I mean. If you buy in Davidson County versus Williamson County, the taxes are different. So if we have a meeting about buying your house, and some houses may be right over the line or on one, it's going to affect how much you can afford in each county. Also, if you were to buy in an association, if there's an association fee, your purchasing power may be a little bit less. So I need to know exactly what you can afford in different counties or condos versus houses and associations, non-associations. For every $50 you spend, is going to be about $10,000 in debt. So I need a crystal clear picture about what is possible. And if we don't know exactly what that looks like, we may have to have 2 meetings, and I don't want to have 2 meetings. I just want to have 1 meeting. And I want to make sure that we design and architect your search in that meeting so that we can save time and be very efficient with one another, and we can have maximum results. So I really want to make sure that you're pre-approved before a meeting. If for some reason y'all don't connect or you can't do it, let's just go ahead and plan to push that. Right now we're going to write it in, but if you don't get pre-approved, we're going to push it. So I tell them right then on the phone that this meeting is set in pencil, and we're going to change it if you don't do your part. The next thing is the buyer consultation. We need to have a buyer consultation. And so what that looks like is we're going to have a meeting in my office. We're going to pull up the screen in here. We have a presentation, and we're going to architect your search based on your buyer questionnaire. And so if you don't fill out the buyer questionnaire and you come in empty-handed, this will be a longer meeting because we're going to have to fill out the buyer questionnaire together. So if you want this to be a really efficient meeting, make sure you're pre-approved, make sure the questionnaire is done, and we'll make the most of the time. My goal for you is to have a very efficient home buy experience. And the better we do in person in the meeting, the better it'll be for all of us out in the field. So I set that strong expectation here. And then if they're happening to relocating, when are you coming in town for a preview? Okay. One of the things that has historically been on our buyer phone review, and we did some edits to these just from a branding standpoint and font standpoint. Somehow it's found its way out of here. So Matt, I want to make sure this gets back in. Is this used to have in here, are you interviewing an agent? And somewhere it's gotten taken out. It needs to get back in. The reason why this is important is I have absolutely had people cancel on me because they were interviewing other agents, and before I scheduled the meeting, they had already chosen someone else. Here's a statistic that you need to know. 68% of everyone will use the first agent that they meet with. So you don't even have to be good at your job. Just make sure they see your eyeballs first. I think that's why, applications like the Redfin app is so powerful. Is like you got a chance to see their face to face. That's really, really, really powerful to win somebody. The meeting is what's important. Face to face is important, but the meeting is really important. So if you can get them to sit down and talk with you, 68% of the people are going to work with you. So that being said, is in this buyer phone interview, are you interviewing other agents? Yes. When are you going to meet with them or talk with them? Yeah, we're going to reach out to them later on this week. Then your first goal is to see their face as fast as possible before they talk to anyone else. Okay? Let's say for talking purposes, they say, well, I'm actually going to be interviewing some agents later on this afternoon, and there's not enough time to see them. I want to help you out. And we have a resource. It's called How to Interview a Buyer's Agent. So we have a series of questions that I want to email you in addition to this. Matt, add this here. I want to email you a resource, Mel has it, of how to interview a buyer's agent. And this resource is super important because it's almost like giving you all the questions and answers to the test. So as you're talking to other agents, this is going to help give you a framework to make an educated decision about who's most qualified to represent you. So that's a really powerful tool. So if you have time to beat another agent to meet, 68% are going to work with you. Know that they're interviewing. Get face-to-face first. If you can't get there, they're going to be calling someone right after you. Let me send you a resource of how to interview them. The last thing that I would point out is in working with an agent, you want to, in working with a lead who's going to be interviewing other agents, you want to ask them a very, very important question. How are you going to make a decision? How are you going to choose your representation? I'm a pretty explicit, overt, and direct person because sometimes you're like, yeah, I thought we had a good connection. Like, I'm just so surprised they didn't work with me. You didn't ask them what it would take to work with them. I'd rather just say, how are you going to make a decision? What's important to you about an agent that you're going to work with? I want to work with you. What do I have to do to win your business? I mean, like, let's just lay it direct on the table. There is no ambiguity. There's no fluff. There's no win, lose, or draw. I know what I have to do for them to say yes. We're going to choose the person who we have the strongest connection with. Okay, how will you know when you have a strong connection with someone? We just get a good feeling. Well, have you ever worked with an agent in the past that you had a strong connection with? How'd that go? What was that like? Like, I'm trying to have a reference point of like how they make a good connection with someone. Does that make sense? So I don't want to play win, lose, or draw with leads. I want to know exactly their recipe for saying yes, and I want to get them to say yes to me. So I just straight up tell me, how do you say yes? How does somebody win with you? What's important to you about your representation? Okay? So this is the buyer phone review. Any questions about this at all? Skip.
Here's the question that was taken out of, are you interviewing other agents? Where would it go? I mean, at what point in the order?
Notes section.
Okay.
Yep. This buyer phone review.
Okay.
Just down here in the notes. It'd be like a lower subpoint. Any other thoughts on this? Those of you who sold real estate in the past, and you may have lost some deals. I mean, is there any cautionary tale as to why you would not use it, or why you should use this?
You can never pre-frame enough. So there's always going to be something that comes up that you don't cover. But the more that you cover, at the very least, you can go back and say, hey, do you remember in the buyer phone interview with buyer consultation, we talked about X, Y, and Z. This is the reason why. But if you never have that conversation, you don't have that as a backdrop. The other thing I would say is, I would really get in the habit of making sure that a lot of your communication is in writing, because if it's a phone conversation, it's going to be hard. So yeah, I have not followed this in the past at times, and it has bitten me in the butt because things have come up where it's like, yeah, normally we would cover that during this time, and I've done it, and it's worked out really well because they were aware of what to expect. It's all about expectations and expectations. So it'll work if you work it.
Johnny, you and I were talking about flying yesterday. The worst thing that could probably happen to a pilot is they have flown without their checklist and it worked. And it's like, I don't need to do this. I got this. Yeah. Oh man, that is really unfortunate that it worked for you, that you didn't have to do it. Because it only takes one time that it did not work for you and you got in the habit of not doing it because you got so good as a professional that I know this stuff. I've been doing this forever. It's kind of like in Vegas for gamblers, like the worst thing that can happen is the first time that you go to Vegas and you win a lot of money. It's like, it worked for me. Oh yeah, that's the worst thing that could have happened. I mean, it's better to have failure early and false. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, if it works so well that, oh, I didn't even do it.
It was the first time.
Yeah, it was like, I didn't do a phone interview, I didn't do a questionnaire, I didn't do a consultation. Like they said, yes, it worked out. Like you didn't need all that stuff. That's just too much work for just do it. Oh man. So I would have, this is because I've done this for so many years. There's agents that will call and like, hey, I've got a problem. And I always want to be super helpful and available for agents, very easy on the phone. But I always am asking, so help me understand, in the buyer questionnaire, how do they answer this question? And I had one particular agent one time, he called me and he's like, man, I'm just so ticked off. These clients, we were under contract in Hendersonville and they just asked me to back out of the contract and they found a house in Spring Hill they want to look at. What would you do in this situation? Should I help them get out of this contract? I really don't want to go to Spring Hill and start showing them houses. And I said, when you did the buyer consultation and you talked through the location, how did that go? Well, we didn't, they were a referral. They were coming in on the weekend for a relocation. We really didn't need to do that. So we got into contract the first weekend. And I said, listen, I've already learned this lesson because I screwed up and it was really painful. I'm not actually going to help you because you get to learn the lesson. I'm helping your career by pre-framing it. This is how to stay out of this situation. Now you get to figure out how to get them out or not get them out of a contract, make them happy, make them mad at you. Go spend your weekends in Spring Hill, because it would have been so easy in a 5-minute portion of a conversation to have a meaningful discussion about location and why that's important to them. Architect their auto notification in a way that they don't go searching on their own to bring you properties from Spring Hill. Because you failed to start that way, that's why we're having this conversation. I'm not going to help you because you didn't do your job. He was, really disappointed. But that's just sometimes experience is the best teacher. I'm trying to condense decades into days and say, you don't have to go out there and lose a bunch of clients and have a lot of frustration and spend a lot of times on the weekend unnecessarily. You don't have to do that. Take the framework and condense it decades into days and just implement this. It'll save you a ton of time. Any questions before we move on?
I have one suggestion.
Yep.
I always ask students what type of work they do and how they're paid, because that can dictate which lender I'm going to recommend.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like nurses need their own lenders, just because they're different types
Right.
of pay. But that's a good question too. I had one that was pre-approved that was self-employed that ended up not being able to buy for a year because they had written out their income wrong and it wasn't verified. So
Yep.
just trying to vet that out a little bit more.
The bonus, people who get bonused, oh man, that's a rough combination, because what they get, how they get paid, their base plus bonuses, sometimes their bonuses have not been paid out enough to vest. I actually just had this happen with a client recently who is an attorney, and what he earns is a pretty big number. Unfortunately, he has gone into the partnership role at the attorney's office, and in December will be his first year to get his K-1 for taxes. And so because of his new position change, he now can't purchase a house until he has a year of K-1s behind him, because his W-2 status has been terminated. So he has no earning history of his. Is like, you make plenty of money, you're so fine. No, can't get a loan, can't do it. So yeah, that's very important to understand. If you have a lender who knows to do the dirty work on that, then you don't have to have those deeper conversations. The lender can just come back and say, can't do it, won't do it. If you have a lender like Mike at F&M, he is really good about referring out. Like, I can't do this, but they can. I can't do this, but they can. He's very good about pointing in direction. But there is times where he's like, there is no way, no how this person can get a loan until they have K-1 status. There's nobody who will do this. Like, oh man, that's a tough pill to swallow. See you in January, So in the buyer checklist, there's some key points I want to give. The reason why we have such structure around this is we believe processes are essential for operational excellence and delivering a predictable customer experience. What I said yesterday is we're so committed to the customer experience that we want to make sure that what they're receiving is we didn't overpromise as a company and overdeliver. And so if we have agents who are not upholding our processes and the customer's experience is like all over the map, I hate to tell you, buyer, but we don't do, like, that's not the way our company, you chose an agent who didn't follow the plan. I mean, that's kind of the way I feel about it. And unfortunately, that puts a bad reflection on us. So we strongly implore to follow the standard of how we operate. And we are a teachable organization, which means we are asking customers at the end of the transaction, asking agents on the other side of the transaction for feedback loops. What went well, what didn't go well, what can we improve upon? We are constantly looking for ways to improve our processes. So if an agent has a recommendation that says, hey, I really think there's a couple things missing from this buyer phone interview sheet, by all means, let's see if we can fit it in. If, hey, I really think the consultation could be a little bit more efficient, by all means, give us feedback. But we want to continue to evolve and innovate around a predictable process because we are committed for the customer to have a predictable experience. The next thing is in the buyer phone interview, I just want to give you some quick tips. First is to answer your phone. There was a lady that I used to work with, 2008. I would hear her all over the office and she talked super loud. It was like she might as well have answered the phone and said, "I've got a lead." I mean, she might as well have just announced to everybody, "I've got a lead." But she would walk all of the office and go, "Hello, this is Laura," and she would just be talking loud. Finally, one day in 2008, I go to her. I was like, "Hey, I can't help. I think everybody notices that you answer your phone so freaking loud. Hello, this is Laura. You answer the phone like you don't know who that is. What's your thought behind it?" She goes, "If I don't recognize this number, I answer it every single time. I never let it go to voicemail." She's like, she said, "John," and she was teaching me. She did a great job of imparting this nugget of wisdom. She said, "It is so commonplace for people to not answer their phone. It's so commonplace to let things go to voicemail. It's so commonplace to have a need to follow up with someone." So I show them right out the gate, I will answer my phone. I show them right out the gate I'm easy to get a hold of. I show them right out the gate that if at all possible, I do not let something go to voicemail. If at all possible, I do not want to have to follow up. We'd be sitting in meetings, phone rings, she's walking up. "Hello, this is Laura." "Laura, yep. Oh, I thought you were somebody else. I'm going to come back to my meeting." Like if it wasn't a lead, but she's going to show everybody that she'll answer her phone. And I was really impressed by that. In our culture, we don't like to answer the phone. We'd rather text. For us, we got to answer the phone. Next thing is the 80-20. You heard me say we want to talk 20%. We want to listen 80%. When we are talking, we are asking questions until the very end. The next thing is let the conversation flow, but maintain control and confidence. "Hey, tell me a little bit about what you're hoping to accomplish." Again, it's just art. I'm just throwing some stuff out there, letting them to start to talk. And now I come back and I'm filling in the gaps. You didn't mention when you wanted to move. You didn't mention, are you pre-approved? You didn't mention, do you have a house to sell? So I'm filling in the gaps. The next thing is ask the question behind the question. So when I said dig 3 layers deep, question behind the question. When they say we want to have a great connection with whoever we choose to work with, how will you know when you have a great connection with someone? Just someone that we can enjoy being around, somebody that's not too stuffy. Okay, not too stuffy. Yeah, just someone who's just easy to get along with. Okay, you might want to be a little bit more relaxed in the consultation. Or if they're like, we want someone who's sharp, someone who's on the ball, someone who has a plan, someone who is, very communicative. Okay, well then you may want to tuck in your shirt tail and act a little bit different in that conversation. So praise them, honor them, show respect. This can be in the triangling for trust. So, I'm so thankful that Craig made that introduction. Craig has been such an invaluable friend of mine for years. He has helped me in my business. He's helped me in my personal life. He's helped me in my spiritual life. So you can show and honor respect of the third party. You can show and respect. Hey, I just want to say congratulations for you guys. Y'all are getting married and you're buying your first home. That's a major step. And I know that what a cool experience it is. I remember when I bought my first home and I was super excited. So I just want to honor the fact that you guys are reaching a point in your life where you're ready to buy your first home. And congratulations on getting married. When's the wedding? So you want to affirm them, praise them, honor, show respect, sow seeds into their life. This term right here, feel, felt, found. I use this as much as I can when appropriate in the phone interview, in the buyer consultation, in the questionnaire. Sometimes you'll have people who will share, like for example, I'm excited to move. I'm like, I would move this weekend. My wife, on the other hand, she's not so hepped up on moving because this house really just raised our kids, and it's just going to be hard for us to leave for her. I'm ready to go. She's not quite there. If you were to not feel where they're coming from and you were to go into a listing presentation and a buyer consultation to sell by, and you're like, hey, I can help you sell this house this weekend. This house will sell for no problem, for top dollar. We can get you out of here right away. That wife could be like, oh, no, my kid's handprints are on the front porch. Like, here you are telling me to get out of the house. I'm not there yet. But you may want to speak to, hey, I just want to Jenny, this actually happened to me, some friends of mine, Jenny and Paul. Jenny, I understand this house had a lot of memories. Her kids that they grew up in their basement walls, they taught Young Life. And all in the basement walls, they had all the kids sign their names and write Bible verses. And you go downstairs, and it's like a graffiti wall of all the kids for all the years that were coming out of Ravenwood High School. And she was like, selling the house is going to be painful enough, but I wish I could just take the walls with me because they've got all my memories on the walls. And so there was a lot of attachment to that home for those walls that were written on. okay, for me to press in on, let's get this house listed, it'll sell for top dollar and push like that, that's not honoring how she feels. I need to get her in the car and let's start to, what are you most excited about the next season of life? What are you hopeful about the next season of life? How do you see the next season of life? Let's go out there and just look at some properties, not even to buy, just to see if you can envision the next season of life. Like I'm gonna have to feel where she's at. I hear where her husband's at, I'm gonna have to feel where she's at. So a lot of times I use this feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. I have felt the same way when I left my past house. You know, we built our house and my kids, I felt the exact same. But here's what I found. When I found like the next house that really fit our lifestyle needs, then So you take, I empathize, I feel you. I have felt the exact same way as you have in this scenario. But here is what I've found. You're wanting to build a bridge. You're wanting to move them emotionally. Almost always people are getting stuck logically around something when really it's the emotion that's backing it up. So I want to connect with them emotionally and help build that bridge to keep them moving on what they've expressed. Otherwise, sometimes like, yeah, we want to move, but I don't know if it's the right time. Brandon came in here the other day for a consultation, and Brandon and I were talking. I was like, "Wasn't that the girl that was going to sell like a year and a half or 2 years ago?" And he's like, "Yeah, we've been trying to sell this house for about 2 years now." And I was like, "Huh, why now?" He goes, "She finally got remarried, or she found a boyfriend. She's getting remarried, or something like that." And he lives in Alabama. I was like, "Wow." She was not even willing to move in Middle Tennessee. She's willing to go to Alabama now because love. You know, like there comes a moment to where all the reasons why you wouldn't sell, all of a sudden I'm selling. Well, 2 years of nurturing that relationship is a long time whenever maybe you could have empathized a little earlier. The last thing is to make them anticipate the meeting face to face. So when I'm getting off the phone, this is like last thing, like guys, I just want to say I'm really excited about meeting with you on Thursday. On Thursday, I'm going to give you a crystal clear picture on how we are going to go from a day like today when we're just having a conversation to where you could be sleeping in your house the next 30 or 45 days. In that consultation, I'm going to show you exactly how you will save time by not looking on all these different websites. You'll save time by not driving neighborhoods. How we'll save time to take what you have expressed in your buyer questionnaire and really pinpoint in on the house. We are going to have a great time together. It's going to be super informational. I really think you're going to find that hour to be invaluable, and it's going to make the most. So whenever I wrap that call, I'm kind of setting a tempo and pace and getting them to anticipate wanting to meet. I'm kind of giving them some early things about what they can expect in that next meeting. So the buyer phone review, these are some pro tips that I would give to make the most of that meeting. 68% of the people are going to use the first agent that they see face to face. So your goal is to get to see their eyeballs soon, really soon. Not at the expense of them not getting pre-approved, but soon. Okay? So here's the principle. You only have one chance to make a first impression. So I think it's so important to answer the phone like Laura did. I think that's really vital. However, if you don't have your plan, it may not be the best phone call. I think it's okay to like, hey, I did not recognize your number. I would love to talk with you. I'm not really in a place right now to give you my undivided attention, and you deserve undivided attention. Can I call you back in 5 minutes? Like, wow, I trust you more. The fact that you answered your phone, that you told me that you wanted me to give me undivided attention, and that you were going to call me back with the plan. You know, like, yeah, the conversation didn't last long, but the first impression was amazing. You answered the phone. You were direct. When I did talk to you, it was a meaningful conversation that seemed to have some bit of structure. I don't say I got a questionnaire, question number 7. No, it's just very conversational, but I'm working my plan. A lot of times in real estate, we talk about scripts. I mean, years ago, I'd gone through some Keller Williams training that talked a ton about scripting and the importance of like working through your scripts. Scripts have never worked for me, never. Questions do work for me, like working through the questions versus making statements. Like I don't really like reading, hey, fill in the blank. The purpose of my call is fill in the blank. I want to I don't want to read this thing. It's just too rote. I just want to be free form and just ask questions and just have the ball rolling. So I want this to be your first step in making the first impression. We talked about digging 3 layers deep. I almost look at this like archaeology, like there's something below the surface. When they say something, there's actually something below that they're not saying. So we will cover this in the buyer questionnaire. one of the expectations questions is, how does someone win with you? And I want to know clearly, how does somebody win with you? What are you looking for in an agent? And I've had people answer the question like this: oh, I want a good communicator. And I want a good communicator is different probably for everyone in this entire room. And so if I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm a good communicator, what else do you want? Stop there. They said they want a communicator. You do not know what that means. You got to dig below the surface and find out what it means to them. So one time I had someone who said, it's really important, but on the questionnaire, we will cover this in just a minute. I want a good communicator. And I said, when you say a good communicator, what is your preferred method of communication? And they said, well, I'm at work all day, every day behind a computer, so I email quite a bit. So email is my preferred method of communication. And I said, okay, what is the timeline in which when you send an email, what is your expectation on receiving the email response back? And if you don't get a response in the back in that period of time, you're going to feel like you're not being communicated with. They're like, I think it's reasonable, like 8, maybe 12 hours. I was like, okay, 8 to 12 hours. Okay. So if you don't get an email response in 8 to 12 hours, how are you going to feel? Yeah, I'm going to feel like I'm not a priority. Okay. I said, that's going to be a big problem for me because picture yourself in my role. If I pick someone up that's relocating to town and I'm picking them up from the airport or whatever, and I'm driving them around town, we're doing tours all day, I'm actually not in front of my computer the entire day. I'm not checking emails. I'm present with the person who's there in front of me. And so if you email me that morning about a house and I'm with someone else and I don't know that it's there, you're going to get frustrated if I have not responded. So I can just tell you right out the gate that our relationship is going to have problems if we work together. If you communicate, if your method of communication is email, your timeline is 8 to 12 hours, and you're going to feel like you're not a priority if I don't respond, I promise you will get frustrated and I will let you down. I would rather refer you out. Or you understand that I will not respond to any emails. And so because we were so deep in the relationship, the consultation, I did a good job. They're like, okay, so if we said that no emails, then we'll work together. I'm like, yeah, if we commit to no emails, you have to call me. So we ended up working together, but I knew this relationship was going to go really bad based on there's something below the surface. Communication, I will fail you. And I got them to communicate in the way that I wanted to communicate, and we never had to email back and forth. I learned this because I had a couple one time who called and cussed me and my assistant out on 4th of July because we did not respond to their emails on 4th of July of 2013, I think, 14. They were livid. You don't respond to any emails. You're not paying attention to your customers. They were going off. And it was like, we had looked at so many properties and spent so much time with them. We were just it was like an abusive relationship. You just could not get away from it. And I remember thinking, I will never, ever put myself in a position with a client to have to go through this again. It's my fault. I could blame them and say they're crazy. It's my fault. I actually accepted them as a client. This is a two-way street. I'm going to tell everyone I do not respond to emails, period, if you're a client. I will not respond to your email. You have to call me. So that's the way I rolled from then on, and it made everything easier. So everybody has different ways to work, but if you're not, the point, I'm giving you a couple stories of the importance of digging below the surface to evaluate how you can serve them at the deepest level. So there's a couple of phrases that I use to kickstart the 3 layers deep conversations. So I'll say something like, when they say we want to live in Brentwood, I'll say, I'm curious, why Brentwood? Or I'll say, hey, I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about why you chose Brentwood over Forest Hills or Brentwood over Franklin. I'd be curious to know why you chose Thompson Station over Spring. So I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about that. Help me understand, why is Brentwood so important? School systems. Specifically, what school systems? Because you may fall into Fieldstone Farms versus Grassland, and those school systems start to change. Are you looking for a school, an elementary or middle or high school specifically, or is it a system of Williamson County? There's a big difference. So help me understand a little bit more about when you say school systems. What about that is important to you? So I'm digging. Hey, when you say finding a good agent, what's a good agent first off? I'm curious. Well, why is that so important to you? Someone who knows the market. Because markets literally change every single month. Someone who was good a month ago may not be any good. Tell me a little bit more about that. So it doesn't always have to be like in question form. Hey, tell me a little bit more. Tell me a little bit more. Tell me a little bit more. Hey, I'm curious. Why is that so? I just keep digging. Let me make sure I hear you correctly. I want to state it back to them. This happened the other day. There was a guy that we were going to list his house, and we were talking about our coming soon strategy leading up to the open house. And he says, no. I do not want an open house. I do not want people coming through here. That is not going to do that. Okay. Let me make sure I hear you correctly. You would actually rather have, say a week of showings, and this house is going to have a lot of showings, say 40 showings in a week. You would prefer to disrupt your lifestyle 40 times throughout the week to get the best offer, rather than having a 2-hour time block to let 40 people come through a 2-hour time block to create a competitive market to where they're going to see their competition and want to bid out their competition. You would rather let them drift in one-on-one without any pressure and disrupt your lifestyle for an entire week versus 2-hour total inconvenience to get the highest offer to create a competitive. He's like, I guess when you put it through that lens, let's just do the 2-hour thing. So let me make sure I hear you correctly. You state it back to them in a way that different than what they said to you, right? So that's another way of digging 3 layers deep. Or you could just say, so what I hear you saying is you're not going to be happy if I don't respond to emails. Well, if you just call me, could you just call me? Yeah, I'll call you, but I'm not going to email you. Yeah, okay, if you just call me. Matt said this earlier about putting something in writing. Sometimes agents want to have your words in writing, and it's not good to put your words in writing if you get into precarious situations, because they can screenshot it, send it to their client, and all communication, 7% is the word selection. Have you ever seen someone read a text message and you're like, oh, they were like, nah. No, they didn't say nah. They just text message you. You put emotion to the words. When you send an email, people put emotion to words as they want to. So I want to be able to communicate. It's basically your nonverbal communication is going to get the most clarity. So at the very least, I want to verbally communicate this. So I'm on the phone as much as possible. I want to be on the phone. I do not want to text. I do not want to email because I know my message will not get across. Very last thing, I'll use this in word pictures. So I'll say, here, do me a favor. Paint me a picture in your ideal mind, what is your new house going to look like? Paint a picture for me. Well, husband may say, Saturday afternoon, I want to wake up. I want to go get some chicken biscuits from Chick-fil-A. I want to sit on my back porch. I want to watch Kurt Herbstreit watching college football. Game day. I just want to enjoy. And then I want to have people come over in the afternoon. I want to have a big barbecue out back. I want to have a fence. I want the kids playing out there and the dogs and okay. Parking's got to be important if you're going to have a bunch of people. Oh yeah, you got to have parking. So these things make sense to ask this question in the buyer phone review and in the questionnaire, because when we're looking at houses, I can pull up to a house and say, hey guys, this is not the best house for us. And here's why. I did not know this until we got here, but noted, I specifically remember a listing that I had of a buddy of mine on Hogan Road in Creve Hall, who is an avid Auburn fan, who loved to watch college football. The biggest problem by his house, Hogan Road's a busy street. There was no shoulder to park on. So when people would come over, there was nowhere to park. And he could not wait to move off Hogan Road to get a street to where people could come over and park to watch college football. So I can save my time of showing this house 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, pulling up and guys, remember we said there's no room to park? I don't know. I really don't even care what the inside of this house looks like. Your college game day, your pool parties, the kids playing, this house is not going to meet that picture for what you painted me when we talked. Are we good to keep driving, or do y'all really want to go see it? Well, let's just keep driving. Great. We get to skip houses. I want to skip houses. I don't want to show them houses that do not fit the picture that they painted. But sometimes you got to take the details, because in that section, it has, tell me the details of your own single family, townhome, condo, square footage, bedrooms, bath. That's all just numbers. Paint a picture for me. Show me exactly what living in this would look like. So that is what 3 layers deep looks like. So we're going to take a break. But any thoughts or questions on the buyer phone interview, the importance of doing it, how we do it, why we do it, the benefits of it, and how if you don't do it, you hate your own self?
Yeah, I've got a question. I'd love to hear your opinion. On here, it doesn't say anything about their preferred method of communication, in the phone interview, whether it's text, email, or phone calls. Yesterday, I had a phone interview with a lady out in Tucson, and before I could even ask her preferred method, she was like, and by the way, I hate the phone, so don't call me again. Let's do everything through text. So, yeah, okay, great. She spit that out before, but I always ask people that. So, like what you were saying about, you don't do email, but wouldn't you want to frame it with what their preferred method is, because there's so many different personalities?
So in the buyer questionnaire, when we come off the break, there is an expectation conversation. I think that in the buyer phone interview, it's a little too early to start setting rules of the relationship. So I established the rules of relationship in the buyer questionnaire. If you're doing a lead from Tucson and that does come up, that's a little bit of an outstanding circumstance. What I think is important as a business owner is this is how I do business, and I'm looking for people who fit in my framework. And if they don't fit in my framework to be productive and efficient, I need to have the courage to refer them out and just tell them I'm not the best fit. Because I would rather work with 2 people who are happy to work on the phone than to 1 person who does not. Because if you've ever worked with a client that's just like, oh my gosh, come on. It's not that they're crazy. It's that their rules and your rules are in complete contrast. And if you work with someone who's like, man, we just hit it off. Like we had a groove. It was just enjoyable. Well, we just happen to match. And so I would rather say, this is what I'm committing my business to my communication method in this case. This is what I'm committing to. Anybody who's a mismatch, I'm just going to say no and refer it out. Because there's somebody else who'd be happy to do that. I want to reserve my time and effort to people who I can be efficient with and just matches. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good.
Go back to the lady who wanted to sell her house, wanted to buy a horse. House was on the market for a while, didn't sell. Through that process, and I'm assuming that was your client, did you say it's not selling because the price is too high several times, and finally it was...
I kept the attention of the horse the entire time. The horse.
Okay.
We had price reduction horse. Price reduction horse. Price
Well,
reduction
she was
horse.
ready to give up because it wasn't selling.
Right.
And the reason I'm asking this was it the attention to the horse that convinced her or put her in a frame of mind to say, yeah, I guess I am? Or was she kind of a stubborn lady that said, no, I'm not going to bring that? I know I can get this much. I'm trying to determine, in using what you're talking about, what type of person she was.
I mean, I kept the attention on the horse, but sometimes like your goals and dreams can get removed. Like, I want this. And it's like, oh, maybe I don't want as bad as I thought. Maybe I don't want. You have to continue to rekindle that fire.
Right.
Like, hey, when we talk about a horse, like, what'd you name the horse? Oh, I want to name it Pearl or whatever, the white horse name. I'm like, okay, what's the name of the horse? Do you have a place that you're going to board the horse? That you are going to board the horse is they've done the research to know where they would board. How much does it cost per month to board the horse? Like, I'm trying to polish the dream, polish the vision. And the brighter that, man, Pearl's a white horse. This is where it's going to stay. Man, I could be riding that. Oh yeah, the horse could be my Christmas card. I'm trying to get you on a horse for your Christmas card that you send out to all your friends to show them Pearl. Like, I'm trying to polish the dream and make it more of a versus like it's just an inanimate object. Yeah. I'm trying to make it super vivid to keep the attention.
But what it seemed to do was you brought that around, and that's what made her say, golly, I guess I am charging too much.
She was a high she was a high SC on a profile, and she's an 8 on the Enneagram. She valued significance. And so for those factors, she values significance. She's a challenger, number 8 on the Enneagram. She's a high C with a high S on a DISC profile. I'm going to have to adapt my conversation to those personality profiles.
Going back to your way you communicate to sort of tag off of what Jonathan was saying, I think it's as important to understand where you are in the phase of life and how you need to communicate as it is how your clients. So this last year I lost both of my parents and I turned 40 and my life was crazy. And I quickly understood that texts and emails, I read them wrong. Everything was personal. And so I realized that and I love talking on the phone, but talking on the phone was better for me because I could hear the frame of mind that they and the emotional state that they were at, and I could match it.
That's correct.
When I was in text, I wasn't in a great state. And so I just put them in that state, whether they were or not. So, to Jonathan's point, it is better, even if someone, there's been a guy that I passed to math because I was like, can't do it. At times it is better to pass things away versus take it and have even more of a horrible experience, and then you don't get a good referral basis. Because that's really where our business comes from. It's the easiest business to do as long as you take care of people and they refer.
Go ahead.
This is the other thing as far as consistency in your business model. If you've got a bunch of clients out there and you've got all of them wanting to communicate a different way, it's hard to keep track.
100%.
Who wants what? Where's my notes? What was I supposed to text them? Was I supposed to email? Versus my method is to be on the phone.
Yep.
I know how I'm going to work. The expectations set. Everybody knows that. And if that's not the way that you want to work, then Peter's going to be awesome to work with. Something like that.
If you truly want to connect with someone, you have to build rapport with them. And this is like scientific. 8 or 7% of all the word selections in text and email is about the communication. And so 45% of it is like your verbal tonality, and the rest of it's nonverbal communication. So I already know I'm probably not going to see this person face to face today. I got to have as much connectivity with them and rapport building with them as possible. So I need a mirror match pace the conversation. If they feel elevated, I need to be elevated. If they're subdued, I need to be subdued. If they are using I'm looking for an awesome house this weekend. We have to find the house this weekend. And I was like, oh yeah, I think we can find a cool house this weekend. And I think we get some good options. No, they said awesome house and we want to find the house. I don't say cool house and I give you options. I speak in definitives. This week, we are going to find the house. I get to match what they said. Subconsciously, you're like, oh, he hears me. If we're texting, we don't get that. So I'm not trying to advocate for phone only, but I am trying to communicate. There is a big, big, big difference in text, email, phone, face-to-face. And you need to know where you shine and what method you use for what thing.
I was in a training once and it said more than 90% of texts are misinterpreted.
100%. I totally believe that. I get home, there's times where Karen's like, what's wrong with you today? I'm like, nothing, I'm fine, what's up? She's like, you were short. I'm like, well, short? She's like, yeah, I asked you where you wanted, if you wanted dinner at 6 and you said no. What's wrong? I was like, I didn't want dinner at 6, I ate a late lunch. Well, you didn't tell me that. I was in a meeting where you're being short. Did the meeting not go well? No, I was in a meeting. I was like, no. And here she is like wearing it for 3 hours. Like, what's wrong with him? Is he going to come home? Is he in a bad, it was no. It was. I was in a meeting. I'm like, no. So we misinterpret text even on the very basic level. Do you want dinner at 6? No. What's wrong with you? Nothing. Something's wrong. You're not telling me what. No, I'm telling. If you keep asking this question, there's going to be something wrong. So we all get it. All right, let's take a break. And then we're going to talk about buyer consultations and buyer questionnaires, use case in the buyer consultation. Julian?
Our extended around schools, reading, and world travel and stuff we did in 2020.
All right, so we're going to talk about the buyer consultation, and this questionnaire that I gave you is something that we cover in the buyer consultation. I have found that a lot of times when an agent would call and have some sort of issue that they need to troubleshoot with a client, primarily it always comes back to a failure to start the relationship off in a buyer consultation. Peter, whenever you called me about the guy with the lease in November, buyer consultation, either that did not happen or there was no communication around that in the phone review. So almost always, if you are not looking in the right location for a customer and they send you a Zillow listing in another location, what are they doing? Didn't have a consultation, or you did not communicate it. Either you didn't do it or you didn't talk about it. And we've built an outline that if you follow the outline, all these things should be brought up so that you don't have to reframe that relationship later on. So what is the questionnaire and what is the consultation? I took pretty much every problem that I've ever had with any client ever, and I said, what would I have had to do on the front end to avoid the problem with the customer? And so I wanted to pre-frame the customer, pre-frame the problem so that I did not find myself in the situation where I had to reframe it. Does that make sense? So if you have to reframe something with someone, you have to get over some adversity, whether that's in the negotiation, in the inspection, in the location, in the search, in the financing, it probably came down to the consultation. So I don't want to undersell the importance of the consultation. I believe that it should happen every single time in the office or in the destination of your choice. I feel like it shouldn't be, go grab coffee close for you. What's convenient for you? Maybe we just go grab Starbucks close to your office. It should be an appointment that you set the location of where it's going to be. It needs to be a presentation to where you have a screen that y'all can look at the screen together, and I'll show you why here in a second. It needs to be, all decision makers need to be present. One time we had a presentation and I was with the husband and he comes in and we're doing the thing. And probably about halfway through, he goes, "Hey, if you don't mind, I need to call my wife." And I said, "Okay." And so he walked out of that room and was in the thing, and the door was open so I could hear him talking. He goes, "Honey, I really, really wish you were here. I think you need to be here. I think you would probably, make a different choice if you were here and hear what they had to say." I was thinking, what? He's like, "No, I mean, we're halfway through, but I mean, I think you can make it." I know, but okay, I'll try to take good notes, but I really wish you were here. I think you'd make. And in my head, I'm thinking, make a different choice. I didn't even know that she was going to be a part of the decision-making process. That was never communicated. I thought we were working together. You know what? They used her friend. He was coming just because he'd already set the appointment. She was the decision maker. She was not present. So when you have a consultation, all decision makers need to be present. If there is a dad that's buying a house for his kids or something like that, that has happened. That's happened to Thomas. Boom. It's bad. They need to either. Yeah. Really bad. That's actually happened to you twice. One of your first clients, if you remember, at the Park Melrose.
In case you didn't remember.
Oh, Rapport?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He took it off the market.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you don't have all decision makers, even if it's a dad, not that the dads are wrong, but they have an opinion. And if they have an opinion, they're going to have influence, and they're not there to hear this. It's going to have some trouble. So whether you need to Skype call them in, Zoom call them in, like whatever possible, you make sure that everybody who's going to have a voice in this process is present. Otherwise, it could get tumultuous. Mackenzie and even I had this situation last year. We had some clients that they were settling a state. There's 4 people. We only knew of one, and we're talking to one. And then we quickly realized, because it's getting a little choppy, well, hey, you keep having to call us back with answers. Who else are you talking to about this? Like, what? She's got 3 other siblings that we've never even known their name, we never talked to. Finally, it's like, we're not moving forward at all. Hard stop until we have an all call with everyone to get on the exact same page. How are y'all going to make a decision? What's the process of making a decision? Is it a unanimous? Is it 3 against 1? Is it 2 to, like, who is making the decisions? It's important to know these things. Otherwise, decision-making process starts to get choppy. So I cannot oversell the importance of having a consultation. So the buyer questionnaire, we would have emailed them this prior to the meeting. I would like, in an ideal world, for them to fill this out and send it back to me prior to the meeting. That does not happen all the time. It doesn't happen very often, to be honest with you. Typically, people bring it in with them. The reason I would prefer to have it back early is so that I can read their answers, highlight their answers, and go ahead and predetermine my 3 levels deep questions. I want to lean in on here. I want to lean in on here. I want to lean on this. So I'll highlight it and I'll write number 1 question, number 2. So whenever we meet, I'm like, hey, I've got a couple clarifying questions about your answers. So that makes it a lot easier. Second option is they bring it in and I've kind of got to read through it with them on the fly and dig on the fly. Then the worst case scenario is that they have done nothing. And I tell them on the phone in the consultation, if you do not fill this out prior to the meeting, we will do this as soon as the meeting starts. We're booking for an hour meeting, may end up being an hour and a half to 2 hour meetings if you don't do this on the front end. So I'm almost trying to like scare them to doing it. Like, we are going to make sure this questionnaire is filled out. You will learn a lot about your client by if they fill this out, and you'll learn a lot about their client to what level or degree they fill it out. If they're writing sentences and it's filling up the page, they're serious. If they're like, they're just kind of half-assing it. So you tell a lot about the client by giving them a quick homework assignment that's going to help them. So here's some things. The first thing is the buyer questionnaire helps you uncover what they really, really want. The next thing, it helps you to build rapport. There's something about sending and receiving messages. They say something, you hear it, you say it back to them. Like, we're building this connectivity. If they're even thinking about using someone else, time spent is going to keep them in relationship. So it helps you build rapport with them. The next thing is it clarifies the target for both of you to move forward. So once you have done this, it's like, okay, here's what we will say yes to. Here's what we will, lean in on. The next thing is it gets the decision makers on the same page. Man, I have wasted a lot of time because the husband and wife are ping-ponging against one another, and I'm like in the middle. I mean, there's been times where I've had the husband in a house like, hey, man, I want you to get my wife to say yes to this house. I love this house. All right, it's your job. It's your job. You got to sell this house. I'm like, oh God, your wife said that about the last house for her. Like, you guys, like this is really a hard thing. I would rather not be in that moment. In a house when I'm getting pulled, or in the car when I'm getting pulled, I'd rather do that right then and there in the meeting, okay? So here's a pro tip. 1 hour buyer consultation in the car is going to save you, or in the office is going to save you 10 hours in the car. You will waste your life driving people all around town for weekend after weekend after weekend if you do not have this hour meeting. So I cannot, sometimes you just think that you start off with an easy, hot and ready buyer. Oh man, if it actually works out for you and they were easy and hot and you close them, you're like, oh, I don't even need to do this anymore. I'm a pro. I've got this. Like, this is not necessary. That's like you're going to get a client that's going to snake bite you, and it's going to eat up your life. So it's just not even worth it. The second thing it also does in the rapport building is it gives you a reason to demonstrate your competency in your approach to real estate. If they know of anyone thinking about entering into real estate, hey, I just had this great meeting, very informative, great consultation. Like, I highly recommend even interviewing this person. So it gives you a selling point. If you pick them up at Starbucks and go show them 5 houses, everyone does that. So this gives you a way to separate yourself, and it gives them enough awareness about what you do and how you do it for them to speak for you.
You, if you don't and they steer it, they think that you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. And I will also say, in the market, like, it's a non-negotiable. That's how it is with the relocation people. If you want to work with me, you got to fill this out. Because I cannot get you in the car and take you I have an hour and a half. I can't take you all around Nashville. I have to know exactly what you want before you get here.
Mm-hmm.
So I can steer you, and we're not steer, but I can help you look at different.
Match your lifestyle.
Yes. But for clients even that are here, it's like, we don't have time to drive around to all these houses. We have to know exactly what you want, or we're gonna miss out on it. And so it's just a non-negotiable. And I will tell you, the more non-negotiables you have, more people like to work with you.
100%.
The better it is.
Yeah, it's easy.
Everybody's on the same page, and you gotta get there somehow.
Mhm. Yeah. It's kind of like a restaurant with a limited menu. Like the Red Bar down in 30A does so well. They only have 5 things on the menu. They've only had 5 things on the menu since I was going to spring break in college. They have standing out the line. You cannot even modify if you pick one of the 5, you can't even like, oh, can we replace the salad with more? No, this is you stay in the lane. But when you get paralysis and analysis, when you get like a Cheesecake Factory menu, it's like, I've got all of these options. What if there's more options that keep coming on? You actually hurt your customer by giving them a ton of options. If you can hear very clearly and specifically what they want, and you match exactly specifically what they want, you will go infinitely faster. Skip.
Jimmy, I could have done this better. I had a friend, and I called him up and says, my wife and I are thinking about buying an investment property to rent. I said, okay, great. And talked a little bit about it, what you're looking for and everything. He said, okay, look, I'd like to meet with you and your wife, and I know him well. I don't know her. And so I said, I'd like to meet with you. And he says, well, she has a friend that, that's a realtor. She's kind of wanting to use them too. And I said, well, just let me have a shot. Let me meet with y'all. I can't do that right now. A few days later, can we meet and just so I get some clarity on what you're looking for? And I think I can help you better and, all these things. And well, gosh, we really don't have time for that right now. 3 or 4 times I asked. And then I called back a little bit later and said, what's going on? Can we meet? Well, actually, my friend brought a property to us, and we just got it under contract. So the other friend either just got what his wife said and went out there and found something, or that didn't want to have a meeting to do all that. So
Yeah.
It was just really frustrating though, that I was trying to do it right and be professional. And so the person just went out there and found something.
So the very last thing that I put on the buyer phone review is to build anticipation. If you're not selling the benefit of the meeting and building anticipation for the benefit, here's why I want us to meet. I want to save you time. I don't want to waste your time. This meeting is going to be so informative that you're going to have very clear perspective on what the market is doing right now so that you don't make multiple offers unnecessarily. You're going to know exactly what your capabilities are from a finance standpoint because you're going to get pre-approved. We're going to match your search so you're not having to drive neighborhoods, look at all these websites on different platforms. We are going to make sure that you understand the 6 steps in buying a house. My job is to make this very efficient. At the end of the meeting, you're going to decide whether or not you want to work with me. And it's totally fine if you decide, that was informative, it was great, but we still want to work with someone else. So even when we want to work together, I want to have this meeting with you because I want to create value for you with no expectations. If I earn it, great. If I don't, no worries. So building anticipation and speaking very definitively about what they would receive the benefit in that meeting is very important. For marketing, you and I were talking about marketing on the break. Great marketing is going to do 3 things. And this kind of relates to the buyer. If we're talking about a buyer consultation, this is a very physical marketing. But the first thing is marketing is going to have an irresistible offer. An irresistible offer. They're going to put something out there that you just cannot say no to. And I'm going to tell you the 3 things, and I'm going to tell you how I would apply it in that situation. The next thing is a bold claim. And the third thing is a risk reversal. Very simply, 1, 2, 3. this is more marketing speak, but if I had someone who was a little bit on the fence and I'm like, dang, I can't get them locked down, I'm gonna put my marketing hat on and I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna make you an irresistible offer. For 1 hour of your time, you're gonna know da 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 da. I'm gonna teach you da 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 da. I'm gonna lay out exactly what they're gonna gain, the benefit from this. The bold claim is you're gonna be able to save your weekends. You're not gonna have to drive. You're not gonna waste your time looking on websites. You're gonna get emailed the property list. You're gonna know very clearly what your income targets or what your price point targets are in different counties. So I'm gonna make a very bold. I believe that we have the best solution for you. Here's what you're going to receive the benefit. My risk reversal then is going to say, if you choose to work with me, I will give you $2,500 towards your closing cost. If we start working together and it's not the best experience you ever had, you can fire me without any notice. Like find some way to where there's no risk. But if they're like, I don't know, like what makes this person better? They have an irresistible offer for 1 hour. This is what we're going to get out of it. They have a bold claim. They said that they can do da 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 da. We have our cash offer program. They can buy houses fast, but our other company that we're working with can't. And then they said they'd give us a credit towards closing costs. They said that they would not make us, they would not hold us to a contract. You definitely want to have a buyer rep for them, but they wouldn't stick it to us. We have a way to get out, and we get to tell them if we want to terminate it. Having an irresistible offer, a bold claim, and a risk reversal makes people make decisions. And we're not trying to make decisions of yes, you always. Sometimes the decision is a no, like I don't want to work with you, or no, I don't want to buy this house. We just want to help people make better decisions. So here's the consultation. This consultation was set up to pre-frame so that we don't have to reframe. You have to reframe when you didn't do your job on the front end. So here's the principle. Pre-framing things with your client so you don't have to reframe them later on. That's why I said 1 hour meeting is going to save you 10 hours in the car. Pro tip, have the buyer consultation at the office. This helps you establish your professionalism and the leader in the transaction. The couple months ago, whenever Mackenzie and I chose not to work with this client, it was a weird conversation. Hey man, we're not a fit. Very clearly, we're not a fit. We are good at our job. We lead all of our relationships with our clients. It seems like you don't want to be led. And maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but you have a lot of opinions. We are not going to alter how we do business. We're just not a fit. We're happy to refer you out, but we're not going to work with you. That's our decision. What? You're not going to work with me? No, we're not working with you. We're happy to refer you out. Somebody's going to be a great fit for you. It is so bumpy in this meeting. It's not going to be good going throughout. So I would rather say no to him so I can say yes to 2 or 3 other people. So here's the slide. What we're about to go through is the presentation of the buyer journey. So what you're seeing, you'll have access to this. You can use it anytime. But right out the gate, I want to preface, you have received the buyer consultation or questionnaire. I had this slide up in our meeting. I have my questionnaire in the beginning. So I'm going to show you how we work through these slides. Our goal is to make your home buying experience easy, efficient, and enjoyable. So those are not just 3 quick and easy words like, oh, easy, efficient. How do we make it easy? Is we have very clear expectations. How do we make it easy? We have a plan to enter into the market to win. How do we make it efficient? Is we don't waste one another's time. You don't send me listings outside the ones that I've sent you. We have strict criteria that we only stick to. And we're going to lay all that out in this meeting right now. So I mean, like, we're going to make this efficient because we're going to have rules of engagement. We're going to have inbounds. We're going to have out of bounds. And then enjoyable. If we're not wasting each other's time, if we have everything laid out very properly, we're going to have a good time with it. Like, it's going to be a good experience. So that's our goal. If we can't accomplish this goal on the front end, we don't want to work with either one of us. We don't want to say yes. So here is the Scout advantages. This is from our site, but to the general public, see homes first. We are using the auto notification system. RealTrax has really made the world flat on this. I mean, there used to be a little bit more of a competitive advantage. RealTrax now even sends the coming soon listings to Zillow before he's even hit the market. So that being said, see homes first. That used to be a pretty strong anchor, but it's not as much in the last 6-9 months or so since RealTrax keeps iterating. Tour homes faster. We believe the auto notification system should be set up on everyone. They can have it immediate. They can have it by twice a day or once a day. There are even applications that you can schedule an appointment. That's super efficient. I find that if we can order groceries from Amazon to be at our house in the next 2 hours, you should be able to open up a door in the next hour. I mean, for sure. So a team in your corner, we've talked about the importance of having an interdependent team, who's doing what. Being educated, not sold. I'm going to show you a decision point tool here in just a bit about what education for a client looks like. I don't think that selling a buyer is really a healthy way to grow your business. I think education, if they're in a position to buy a house, they've probably made a couple good decisions in their life to be in a position to buy a house. They need the information to be able to make the right choice. So I want to be in the education business, not in the sales business. And then the last is save thousands. So if they're selling and buying, obviously they're going to save money with us. That was on our website. So typically I don't even spend time on mission, values, anything like that, because they've probably already seen it on the website, but it's in there just in case they haven't. I do tend to start the deeper conversation on this slide because typically whenever a client is engaging with someone, they're expecting to get sold and they're expecting to get pushed. There's a bit of a guardedness here. What I want them to understand is that we don't sell, we educate and empower buyers to make their best decision with confidence. We want to be the best educators in the city, period. And if we don't sell a house, that's actually okay because we're serving a client. If enough clients like, man, working with Scout was amazing. Like they did such a great job of helping me make the right decision. I'm going to show you this decision point tool here in a little bit that really is strong whenever you're helping the client say yes or no to a house. So we have a 6-step buying process. Step number 1 is loan pre-approval. Typically, I'll laugh and say, congratulations, you've already done step 1. Now we're on the next step. There is outstanding circumstances that has happened before to where whether someone's in town for a relocation, they're here, they're looking at property, they're willing to have a meeting, but they just haven't been pre-approved. We'll let them know that they need to talk to a lender. They're going to have 4 targets: their credit, their down payment, their debt to income, and their employee verification. These are the 4 targets that we have to aim at to make sure that you get pre-approved for the loan. So I'll take the next step and say, we really don't want to go looking at a bunch of houses until we know that you can afford to get a loan. Step number 2 is the buyer consultation. And I'm like, congratulations, that's what we're doing right now. And so you'll see down here at the bottom where it says fill out the questionnaire and set the appointments. So this is when I bring out the questionnaire and say, thanks for filling this out. We want to spend some time on this questionnaire. So everybody pull out your questionnaire right now. And I'm going to be a little bit quicker through this. They've probably already filled it out. They've probably already given you, hopefully you've been able to identify what's the most important things. But the first section is the details. Some of this has been covered in the phone review. Some of it may not have been. There is this section right here that talks about what do you enjoy most about your home that you're currently living in, what's missing. So you're looking for pain and pleasure. I want to know what they like so I can match it. I want to know what they don't like so we can avoid it. Then what's your biggest concern about buying right now? So many people have concerns about buying in this market right now. I want to hear their concerns and I want to find out how big of a concern it is, because if it turns out like, yeah, we're not going to overpay in this market, and this market's too hot. I mean, we want to buy, but frankly, if we can't get a good deal, we're not going to buy. Whew. Before I put you in the car, we've got some questions here. How will you know if you get a good deal? How you say you don't want to overpay, how will you know if you're overpaying? So if I don't know what their framework to say, oh, I'm overpaying, or, oh, I got a good deal. If they say a good deal, it's like, I want to be able to get at least $10,000 off of asking price. Okay? $10,000 off of asking price. If it's overpriced by $20,000, that's still not a good deal. So yes, you got $10,000 off, but you didn't get a good deal. Are there another way that we can look at this? So I'm trying to make sure that their expectations are aligned with reality. Next thing is, what's exciting you most about this new home? I want to hear what's pulling them, because there may come some times in the transaction, if we get beat out on an offer or two where they're starting to get discouraged, I'm going to need to come back to what's exciting them about buying a house. So like for my family, Brave just wants a trampoline. So if I was selling my family, I want to keep the attention on, I want to get your son in a trampoline before winter time comes. I want to get your son on a trampoline before winter time comes. Like, you got to know what's pulling them so you can keep polishing that and keep bringing it front to keep them moving. Why is this important to you? What excites you most? Why is that important to you? So then we talk about the location. In these questions, just like in the phone review, we ask the questions, we dig 3 layers deep. We ask the questions, we dig 3 layers deep. Sometimes for people who are not accustomed to an area, so let's say for talking purposes, someone is moving from Green Hills to Gallatin, and one of the reasons why they're moving is they want the lake life. And they want to be, say, 20 minutes from lake life to working downtown. That could be a problem if we're talking about traffic times. So whenever you say, I don't want to be 20 minutes, where we get off on Vietnam Veterans Parkway and getting over to the lake, you actually could drive farther down Vietnam Veterans to get to the lake faster than being closer in Hendersonville. So I may be advocating for you to move farther away from the city mileage because you've told me the time is what's driving the decision making. So as you're asking these questions, you really have to be able to figure out, is it mileage? We don't want to be more than 10 miles from our work. Okay, 10 miles. If the perfect house in the perfect school system, perfect price was 10.5 miles, you would say no to this. No, I'd want to know. Okay, so it's not 10 miles. Is it 15? You know, like we're just trying to find out what do they really, really, really mean. Again, I'm beating this dead horse because it's so important. An hour digging will save you time in the car, and for them to text message you at 11 o'clock at night because they've been surfing Zillow as they're watching TV and like, hey, check out this house. Can we go look at it tomorrow? Where did this house come from? This is not what they have told me that they want. This has nothing to do with what we agreed upon. So how you respond to that late night Zillow text should always come, remember when we had our consultation. Remember how you answered these questions. Sure, we can look at this house, but I think that it would be a bad use of both of our time to go look at this one house without realigning our entire search to see what else is out there. Is this an indication that we need to realign our search? Does that make sense? Because what has happened to me is I go show them that one house. They're like, wow, we really like this neighborhood. We hadn't really been out here before. Are there other places out here for sale? Oh my God. We're going to have to come back out here again tomorrow. And I've got to reschedule 5 or 6 appointments because now we've opened up a new area when we could have all done it just at one fell swoop, right? Next thing is the type of home. Paint me a picture is really valuable here on the type of home. I want to know how they're going to live in the home because there sometimes is houses that I've had clients that have had interest. They want to buy this house. They're hot on it. But how they answer the use of the house is not making sense to me. I think this house is going to be a hard resell. I don't think they're going to be as happy as they think they are based on our previous questions. Instead of me giving my opinions about it, I can say, I'm glad you guys are interested in this house. But just out of curiosity, I'm curious. When we did our first meeting, there was some things that you said that are in misalignment with this house. And frankly, if this house is an option, there probably is going to be some better options for us out there. And I just want to, did I mishear something or have you changed and not told me you changed? Yeah, thanks for asking that question. I mean, I think we're just kind of desperate and we're at this point willing to settle. Okay, if you're willing to settle for this house that does not meet what your use case is, what if we looked on the east side of 65? I know all of our attention's been on the west side of 65. What if we looked on the east side of 65? I think that if we're going to settle this way and not we can actually have a better house over here for a little less money. I think you deserve to take one more afternoon just to be able to pursue all options. That's really good guidance. Thanks. Get out there the next day. You find something that you like. Wow. Thanks for educating. Thanks for opening our eyes. Man, you could have easily sold us a house that we were settling for, but you took that. You used a pre-framed conversation and you realigned us to give us more options that we were able to say yes to. Thanks for your guidance. That was very helpful. I cannot wait to refer business to you because you've demonstrated that you're putting my needs as the clients ahead of your needs as the agents. Does that make sense? Needs and wants. There is a big difference in needs and wants. I want to know what you need and I want to know what you want. Keep in mind that however they answer this question of needs and wants, it's probably topical, which means it's probably not the whole truth. You need to challenge whatever they're saying right here. Challenge it. I had a guy one time, never will forget this. His name was Jason. Jason says, I have to have a garage. And I'm challenging. Is that a need or is that a want? It has to be a need. I'm like, no, Jason, just for clarity, if you say it's a need, you will not look at any house at all, period, if it does not have a garage. He's like, that's right. I was like, just so I'm clear, if it, you know, you don't even want to know about the house. That's right. So I filter out in my search all houses that have garage out of there. Jason was coming from Chicago. Jason came in 5 or 6 weekends from Chicago all weekend long. We looked at every house all over the city for 5 or 6 weeks during college football season. I was really frustrated because I wanted to watch football and he wanted to look at houses. He was wearing me out. And finally, this weekend, he comes in like weekend number 6. He's really upset because he came down from Chicago. He's mad at me. He's like, man, we've looked at all these houses. None of them work. He's like, I just want to sit down with you, pull up the inventory, just let me look. And so I'm at my office. I pull up the inventory, and he literally is like, hey, man, scoot over. Just give me the mouse. I'm gonna search for my own house. And he's like going through, and he's like, this one right here. This is a great house. Why would you not send me this one? I've never seen this house before. I'm like, man, it doesn't have a garage. And he's clicking through the pictures. He's like, yeah, but look, it's got a storage shed right here in the back. And I said, yeah, but it doesn't have a garage. I was filtering out all the houses that did not have a garage. You said you needed a garage. So I checked that it had to have a garage. This house does not have a garage. It has a storage shed in the back. And he's like, but this is the perfect house. I'd have said yes to this all day long from day one. And I said, it doesn't have a garage. And he goes, Jonathan, I don't need a garage. I just need somewhere to put my motorcycle and not get rained upon. I can just roll it in there. Oh my God. Are you freaking kidding me? Like I could have watched 4 or 5 other football games, you know, by just asking, why do you need a garage so bad? And he would have said, I want to keep my motorcycle out of the rain. When we got there, it literally had a carport on it, like a little metal carport. He's like, I mean, this is perfect. It can't even rain on it. I can just leave it out here in the carport. I'm like, it's not a garage. We could have found this house month ago. Okay, so I'm really beating home this point because in that meeting, if you're like, needs and wants, what do you need? What do you want? Okay, that's okay. I hear you. Great. Let's keep going. Lean in, like press in. Just think in terms of they're probably lying to you, not consciously, but they just aren't verbally telling you all the use cases. If I would have mined out, this guy does not want or does not need a garage. He wants a garage. He only wants to keep his motorcycle out of the rain. I could have said, hey, to keep our options open, let's include houses that don't have a garage. And if we could install a shed, we'll go to Lowe's and buy a shed. We'll put a metal carport. We'll put something over your, let's just keep our, I could have easily educated him that way. When we sat down at the closing table, he was a very analytical doctor and he pulls out a spreadsheet at closing while we're waiting the attorney to get there. He goes, you know how many houses we looked at? I was so exhausted from being with him. It's not even funny. I was like, I don't know, but it was a lot. He's like, we looked at just over 150 houses. And he had a spreadsheets of every single, and he spread them all out on the table. He goes, here's every house that we looked at and all my notes on everything about them and why I said no to all of these. And I was like, oh my gosh. The house that he bought was $162,000. So my income on that deal was probably like $2.40 an hour. I mean, it was rough. All because I did not pre-frame it. His need was not his need. It was his want. And there would have been other ways for him to accomplish. If his need was to protect the motorcycle, we can accomplish that in a different way. What if the first weekend we go find the first house and I just go buy you a $500 shed from Home Depot or Lowe's, whatever those things cost. I'll buy you one just to be done with it. That would have been a better solution. So I'm really trying to impress this point because sometimes you just flippantly grab a cup of coffee from Starbucks, jump in the car and go show them a couple houses. And then you find yourself in a relationship that has gone on and gone on and gone on. And you wake up months into a relationship after you've been showing a bunch of houses just to find out that they actually are not ready to move forward. And you're like, what have I been doing myself? I could have been having dinner with my kids. I could have been enjoying life. I could have been working with somebody else. And I gave so much time because I failed to ask a couple structured questions at the appropriate time. So I've really beat this dead horse. I'm just trying to save y'all all a ton of time. Next thing, what's most important? In this section, I tell people you have trade-offs. Everybody that buys a house settles for something. And maybe you're super rich and you're getting like the best house ever, but you don't like clover and that yard just happened to have clover. I mean, I'm being funny about that, but you're going to settle in some way for something. So I want them to rank what is most important to you. And I want them to rank them in order of importance of 1 to 5. And then I want to keep our attention on what's the most important thing when we're showing property. So for example, if they would have ranked, they want an easy, let's say, no work, move-in ready. So no work, move-in ready is number 5. And we get into a house that I'm like, this is pretty good. They're going to have to clean the carpets and they're going to have to paint a little bit, but this is a good price. This meets all the, I'm like, yeah, it's just got too much work. I heard you say in our consultation that you would rank this as a 5. No work, move-in ready. That's the least important thing. But now your location and convenience of your home to your work, your school, the criteria, the price point, the easy resale, it's at a good price. That we're winning on all those things. But if you're going to cancel this house based on, you want to be able to do a little bit, you don't want to do any work, that's not what we talked about from day one. And I'm advising you to buy this house because I'm meeting what you've already told me. So I look at what's number 1 and what's number 2, and I let that be the guide of how we're making decisions going forward. And whenever we get into a property that they're wanting to no, I don't think this is the one, and kind of squirrel out of, that's not what I heard you say. Has something changed? Does that make sense? So I'm just trying to save our time. Then the last section, which is the most important section, is expectations. Fundamentally, if expectations are not understood, they cannot be met. If everyone has expectations, and you typically do not know that there is expectations until you find out that there is expectations. And it's like, oh my gosh, we're married, and I had no idea that that's what you wanted. And now we're having a conversation about this, and I didn't, there's always these, oh wow, we never talked about this. That happens in every relationship of life, marriage, friends, kids, clients especially. So I just want to make sure that we have a framework to ask for their expectations, and we have a framework to communicate our expectations for them. It's a two-way street. And I typically say we're gonna decide here in just a little while whether or not we're gonna work together. And if I can't meet your expectations, I'm gonna look to refer you out. And if you can't meet my expectations, you should expect to get referred out because you deserve to have someone that can give you what you're looking for. So I'm asking 5 very simple questions. What's one thing that has to happen for this to be an exceptional experience? Remember I said digging 3 layers deep? They typically will give me an answer. An answer. And I'll say, tell me more. And they'll say, and they'll give me another answer. I'm like, tell me more. Tell me more. I want to know, is there other things? Because they give me one answer. I'm like, okay, sounds good. Yeah, somebody who's on time. You want somebody to respect your time. I can do that. Well, how do you feel like I can expect you? No, don't go to the next question. Tell me more. Tell me more. I want to hear as much out of them as I possibly can about the expectations. Otherwise, they could get really, 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 really frustrated later on in the relationship. What do you feel that I can expect from you as your real estate consultant? This is a two-way street. What do you think? Well, loyalty. Okay, loyalty. So just so I understand, if you were to call an open house or a for sale by owner sign, if you were to go into a model home, you're going to tell them that you're working with a real estate agent, that I'm your agent. Absolutely. Great. Then you should, versus, I don't know, if we find it on our own, I don't want to start if we're not going to finish. Okay. What do you feel I can expect from you as my client? So first off is, what do you feel like you can expect from me as your consultant? What do you expect I can expect from you as your client? How does somebody win with you? How does somebody lose with you? So I tell them right out the gate, I'm gonna be super obvious about this. I want to win with you. I want to be your chosen agent. I want you to have an incredible experience and for you to never work with another agent in your entire life. And you can't wait to tell all of your friends and family to work with Scout. That's my goal. So I want to know exactly how can I win with you. So that is the outcome. I mean, I just straight up tell them very overtly, very clearly what I would like. And I'm like, so for that to happen, what do I have to do? I don't try to get to know them and learn about them more and no, just tell me your recipe and I will bake that cake all day long. Also want to know how somebody can lose with you. If you don't return my phone calls in 24 hours, I'm going to feel like I'm not being a priority. Cool. I can agree with that. What else? What else? What else? Until they say, no, that's it. Okay. I've got a couple clarifying questions. So I'm trying to get the number. What else? What else? What else? And then once they've talked themselves out, now I'm going to come back and figure out the rules in which they would experience what they told me. So they say, I want somebody who's prompt. When you say prompt, what does that mean for you? Well, like on time. Does that mean that you will always be on time? I mean, I might be late if I get stuck in traffic. Okay, can we have a little bit of grace for one another? So like when you say rules, you want to challenge on each one and make sure that it's a two-way street. Then at the bottom, this is our standard expectations. You can communicate. If you agree with this, you can say, this is my expectations. If you don't agree with this, you can say, this is what our company has as a standard. I don't quite adhere to this. Or if you like, I got more than that, add to it. But I wanted to say communication, loyalty, responsiveness, and availability are the 4 things that are very important for me. Communication, open lines of communication as we work towards a common goal. Inevitably, there's going to become times in a transaction where things get a little rough. It could come during an inspection period. It could come during the negotiation period. But the communication is really important that you feel heard and I feel heard and that we're talking openly. If at any time you don't feel like you're being represented the way that you want or feeling like I'm not giving you options like you want, just tell me quick and early. I want to know. Loyalty. This is where I tell them, we expect you to close with Scout. And I would rather to never go look at a house unless we're prepared to close with us, period. If we start today and we say yes, we're going to close with you. Do we have that agreement? Responsiveness. This is a principle that I try to operate off of. It makes me late for a lot of stuff and it makes me a little bit aloof to other things. But my view is like the person that's right in front of me is the most important person in my life. Otherwise, God would not have put them in my path right now, right here. And so if they're in my path right now, right here, if God didn't want them here, they wouldn't be here. But the fact that they are here, I'm going to have to stay faithful to the moment and stay present in the moment and have a stewardship role in the moment and say, God, this is what you ordained on this time right now. I'm here. So because of that, if you're text messaging me, emailing me, calling me, trying to get answers about something, I will never avoid you. Just hear my heart. You will never, ever, ever be avoided. I may not be as available at your time frame, but just know that I will never avoid you. I will call you as soon as I possibly can. But the client that's in front of me is the most important client in my life. So if you're not face-to-face with me, that means somebody else has that seat of priority. What the benefit to you, though, is when I'm with you, you have my undivided attention. I'm not going to be in the house, in the bathroom, making calls and like, hey, I'm going to be outside. I'm with you. I'm locked in. I'm here. I'm present. You're going to get all of me now. So responsiveness, I want to tell you that because if you're blowing me up trying to get a hold of me in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, month, whatever, I don't want you to feel like there's an avoidance. I'm being responsive to the person who's in front of me, and that's not you. If it's not scheduled, it's not you. So I will be back in touch. Man, this saves me so much frustration in the past where people are just ticked, like, I feel like you're not answering my phone calls. I'm not answering your phone calls. Remember, we talked about this in the meeting. The person that's most important to me is the one that's in front of me. You weren't in front of me. We didn't have an appointment. I called you first available time slot. So you've known that from day one. Nothing has changed. You're a priority, but you're not the priority. You know what I'm saying? So I'm very firm with people in that regard, but it saves a lot of I feel like they're upset at me. Lastly is availability. Guys, agents lose their life to buyers. Showing clients, you absolutely get pulled in every direction. That's why I laughed yesterday in agencies. I want some freedom and flexibility. Good freaking luck. You will not have freedom and flexibility. You'll have everybody, you'll be freedom and flexible for everybody else's schedule. So I tell people straight out the gate, we work 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. When I had these consultations, I would take it a step farther and I'd say, this is what we have on our company form. That's not true for me. I'm done at 5 o'clock. If we don't have an appointment, I am not answering your phone after 5 o'clock. We will talk the next day. Just like your doctor, just like your dentist. If you're like, it's 8:30 at night, I got questions for your dentist. No, he's a professional. He's not going to answer his phone. I get paid the same as much, if not more, in some regards as a dentist and doctor. So I operate that way. If you have an appointment, I'm available, but don't expect late night texts, late night calls. If clients late night text and calls, and I tell them in this meeting, if you late night text, late night call, email, I will not be responding to you until the next day. Do you understand? Is that something we can have agreement on? I have a home life. It would be the way that I look at it is you're my boss. However, if my boss is like wearing me out, if your boss was calling you in the middle of the night, like, hey, check your email. What do you think about this? You would not like your boss, would you? I don't want us to get in an adversarial relationship. So I only work 8 to 7, or for me, 8 to 5 for clients. You get to make this whatever you want it to be. And weekends by appointment only. I had a girl one time, oh man, college football. I love college football. I love Saturday mornings. I love Chick-fil-A biscuits. I love Kurt Herbstreit. I want to be so lazy on Saturday. I don't want to do anything ever. I want to go watch college football. This girl, I needed a client, and she wanted to only look at houses on Saturday mornings. She would call me consistently about 9 o'clock every Saturday morning, like, hey, found something I want to go look at today. Can you check your email? I look at the email, be like 15 houses. I'm like, no, gosh, no. We have 11 o'clock CBS game. Like, how can I push this in the afternoon? Like, I'm trying to figure out how to make this happen. She never ended up closing on a house with me after pretty much half the college football season. She would only look at houses. And I'm like, God, she only calls me on Saturday morning. Man, does she not realize you can go through the world thinking you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy. It's your fault. So I learned pre-framing in a questionnaire. I do not work on the weekends except by appointment only. If you text message me or email me or call me Saturday morning and ask to go look at a house, and you wake up out of bed and you're like, oh, I got nothing to do today. I think I'm going to go waste my realtor's life. I'm going to get them to go buy me lunch and go drive around. I'm not going to respond to you. Like, I'm telling you, I will not respond to you. Now, if you call me on Friday and you say, Jonathan, there's been a house that's hit the market. I would love to go look at these 3 houses Saturday morning. Great. That's inbound. That's on Friday. But if you wake up Saturday morning with nothing better to do and you call me, believe it or not, there's some other things in life that I like to do other than show houses. So I would love to work with you if we schedule it. If you have nothing else to do and you just want to waste my life and you call me, I'm not going to answer your phone. And I'm having fun about it. Like, I'm not like I'm trying to teach you something. This is actually my heart about it. But when I'm with the client, I'm very cool. I'm having a good time. I'm like, hey, put yourself in my position. Like, you want to watch college football? You don't want to wake up and have somebody that wants to go shoot. So help me help you. Like, there's a better way I'm having a good time with them. I'm joking around with them, but I'm getting the message across about how I will not be available on the weekends unless by appointment only. So you get to make your own structure, but these expectations are very, very, very important. Any questions on this before we go to step 3 in the consultation? Clear as mud. Matt, any thoughts on that?
No, all I can say is I'm the guy that's always available and it's business. I learned that the hard way. Set boundaries and expectations, and because if you don't, it will take over your life, and you'll have conversation after conversation with your spouse about how we never see each other, and it's not fair to them. So do yourself a favor and don't be mad.
Your family and friends will absolutely hate that your chosen profession at times.
Yeah.
And we allow that to happen. And so if you want to keep a good work-life balance or family structure, friend structure, you got to protect yourself. So if you don't have a plan for your life and a plan for your business, you're going to fit into everyone else's plans. So this is just a way to say, I got a plan. This is the way I roll. If that doesn't work for you, there's 16,000 other agents in Middle Tennessee that'd love to give away their Saturdays without scheduled. That's not me. I would trust the doctor or dentist that had a plan and boundaries. Henry Cloud is not in real estate, but he's an author that wrote a book called Boundaries. It's a really good book. I mean, you can watch some of his YouTube, but he talks about establishing clear boundaries. It's not meant to be mean. It's just about, hey, this is the boundary. We're friends. This is the boundary. This is what's in bounds. This is what's out of bounds. This is when I call a foul. I'm going to call the foul quickly, early, and often. If somebody's out of bounds, just a refresher. Remember, we talked about this. I'm going to respond in the way that I've already told you I'm going to respond. I'm not available today. I love you. I care about you. I want you to find a house. I'm just not available. So I can't wait to serve you on Monday morning, but I just want to make sure that we've reaffirmed it. So if you resist the urge of getting an 8:30 late night text and be like, I could just quickly respond. You keep doing that, your spouse is going to hate you over time. Like you're always on call. You're never present. Just set the boundary.
Honestly, in this market, it's hard to set the boundaries even more, because things pop up and you're like, oh my God, I gotta put it in like 5 seconds. But I will tell you, pre-framing it and really doing, like, I do not get on social media a lot, but I've been really trying to be active on the coming soon. Like what is gonna, before my client hits it, or sees it pop in their inbox on Friday night at 8:30, and they want to go see it Saturday morning because it just popped up, already pre-framing it and knowing, hey, this is going to come up on Friday. Let's schedule, if this is something you're interested in, let's schedule it for Saturday morning. Like really trying to do the undercover work. So
we all get to establish what our boundaries are. With a new listing, I think that you could give an expectation of saying if a new listing pops on the market Friday night and Saturday morning is the first morning, that's a little bit of a different consideration. But if you send me 15 houses that have been listed for days and weeks, that's out of bounds. I'm not going to do that. I will break this boundary to show you a one-off house that just hit the market. However, if they tell us that they're going to have an open house and they're not going to review offers until Monday, I want to come back and say, here is their plan. I really want to spend time with my family this weekend. I really had some other prior engagements. We can look at it, but it's not going to help us out. So I think that we should probably go look at the open house tomorrow. I think we should prepare to look at it Monday morning since they're going to review offers at 5 o'clock on Monday. So you can strategize around those one-offs, but if they send you that list of weeks old houses, no.
I've also found that there's some clients that will just send you like 8, 9, 10 different listings. And sometimes they need you to go through, because you could just start scheduling those showings, but sometimes I'll dig through and I'm like, oh, no. Like, just, you can cut out like 6 of them based on area or other things, and they want you to do that. So
100%.
Sometimes we're like, oh, these are the houses I want to see. Let's go. Let's try to get some options. I can't tell you how many days I've had like 4 or 5 listings in a row, and every one of them, oh my gosh, I wish I would have looked at the street view or just whatever.
100%.
So you can cut so much time. I've cleared entire days of what would have been worthless showings just by digging through, looking at the pictures, doing a little bit of due diligence, and saving hours and entire days. Just rotate.
And with that coming soon, a lot of agents are starting to use it more. It's become a little bit easier to put things out on coming soon than it was beforehand, especially since the public can start seeing it now. But I'll say, hey, if it's Monday, it doesn't start showing until Thursday, drive past it. It's their house. They have to take responsibility. And they're all about it. I'm like, drive past it, look at it, step outside, see around. And then it just
knock on the door.
Yeah, it just saves being able to, not just necessarily my time, but their time too, and going and seeing something that is wasting their whole day as well.
That street view though, Thomas, every single house. I had a client send me a house. I look at it, like, hey, how do you feel about being next to the main road? Like, oh, I want to be next to the main road. Great, so do you still want to see this house? Yeah, okay. So
Yeah, where you go street view, you'll flip around, you see a massive tower. Something that you just, there's so many, I can't tell you how many times you just street view and look around, or just look at the actual map and see what it's by, or whatever it is.
Matt, I want you to write this down in your notes for the buyer questionnaire. I want to add the question of, what would you say no to? I have to figure out a better question, but if we can get the buyer to say, I would absolutely say no to any house that da-da-da. Hey, did you notice that you said that it has to have a master on the main? This one does not. Yep. Did you notice that you said it cannot be on a busy road? It's on a busy road. So if we know what they would say no to, then it starts to get it really filtered. That's why I said yesterday, a great rapport building is they don't want you to find, or they don't want to feel like they're finding their house. You need to eliminate things and you need to add things to it.
Yeah.
And your first initial tour is going to establish everything.
One of the things, we do a great job, I feel like it's an industry, people what they want, but we don't always do a great job at asking people what they don't want. And I find a lot of people make a lot of decisions based on what they don't want. And So I think that's a really good question.
And also a way to save time. A pro tip is one of the best clients I ever had was one of my very first clients. Almost 18 years or however long ago. He was very decisive to where he would not look at a house if he didn't get a good vibe. So we were driving the road and he's like, "Nah, keep on driving. I don't see myself driving home from work on the street." Okay, we just kept on driving. We pulled in the driveway and he like, "No, I ain't living next to these people. Let's go." Okay. So what I started to learn is he would open up the door in the house. He'd walk in the entryway and he'd be like, "No, can't see myself walking in here every day. Let's go." I mean, he was like quick with it. So to give people the permission to be decisive and encourage them to be decisive, when I used to show properties, I would always tell the story of Mark and Joyce because Mark was like, "No, no, no." I would say, "Hey, one of my favorite clients, a client that worked really well, that saved our time, was someone who's so decisive. If they couldn't see themselves driving down that street, if they couldn't see themselves walking in that house, if they couldn't see themselves walking in that living room, they would immediately walk out." And so today, to be super efficient at a time, I would rather just like get rid of all the chaff, like get rid of all the bad houses and really identify the best ones and a chance for us to come back around. So let's just whip through these as fast as possible. If there's no way, no how that you would live here, keep on moving. So sometimes clients want to just go into a house and like, why would they do this? They just want to like be. They just want to look at houses and just no. You will wait
Weeks.
So if you tell a story about a good client and worked well for the efficiency of time to make a great decision, and say that's how we want to operate today, and then we want to siphon it down to the couple houses that are your best options, that's going to be a great day. So you tell them a story, you give them a very clear target and a process to hit the target. That makes a lot of sense to keep efficiency when you're showing houses.
I want to relay something that a colleague did of mine. Was he had someone coming in for the weekend from out of town, and they said, "We've got 28 houses we'd like to look at." And he said, based on his interview, "I know, I've looked over these houses and I know that you're going to drive by and eliminate most of these houses based on what you've told me. So on the first day you get here, you drive by these houses," and they did, and they eliminated all but 3.
Mm-hmm.
They went in the next day and saw the 3, and on the second one, they put a contract on it. That's just stuck with me as something very efficient and very good thing to do. The other thing is that I'm trying to get settled in my mind is when you're talking about asking questions and when they say, "Well, I will not go over 2,800 square feet. Absolutely will not do it." Well, there's the adage of there's exceptions to every rule, and that keeps coming back to me, and that has been my experience where people say, "Absolutely got to have this," but I feel like you need to either filter through some of them yourself because of those exceptions to the rule that might, your efforts to do that might get them the perfect house that doesn't have this thing that they have.
I'd agree.
So
I'm going to show you, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back and be hard stop at 12. As soon as this 5-minute break's over, I'm going to show you how I filter the houses down as fast as possible to the one. And I've done this hundreds and hundreds of times, and I used to be really, really, really bad at it, but I got really, 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 really good at it. And I'm going to teach you a couple simple, easy strategies of how to take the entire inventory down to one house really quickly and serve the client at the deepest level that they feel heard based on their criteria. All right?
I can't wait.
5 minutes. 5 minutes. gonna try to show you how to filter houses. I'm spending a lot of time speaking to you as an agent and training about saving you time. Ultimately, it really serves the customer. Sometimes I'm funny in a buyer consult, and I'll say, hey, listen, y'all may have never gotten married if it's like a couple. Y'all may have never gotten married if y'all had unlimited options for, maybe there's something better, maybe there's something better. You never said yes. I mean, you just kept on. So what we want to do is we want to be very efficient and arrive at the best decision in the time frame that you're looking to move. So if you need to make a move in 60 days, we're going to identify the best house in the next 60 days for you to say yes. So by you being efficient, you're actually serving your client and helping them make a great decision. So whenever we're talking about the wants and needs, remember that's in the questionnaire, we're now pivoting back to the consultation. I look at the bullseye is like, this is their most important need. Like if they said, okay, we have a mother-in-law that's going to be living in our house. We need to have some sort of walkout basement or some way to have the mother-in-law live in here. It needs to have its own kitchen. Okay. That's a bullseye. You can't get around that. Okay. Then there starts to become things that are like really important wants. Like, this is important to us. We want to have a home office, but we could modify a bedroom. So there's important wants that starts to give us a little bit more broader scope of possibility on listings. The next thing is there is almost like a compromise criteria. It's like, if it had 3 bedrooms, but it had a basement that we could finish out, then we would say yes to it. It's like, it's not a deal, but we would say yes. And then the last is like no man's land. Like, there's no way, no how I'm buying this house if it does not have a garage. So you really want to know like what is the need and want and how important it is so that you know how broad to make the criteria. So I let people, I guess I'll keep it right here one more second. I let people know there's only 3 things that they can change to have options. And right out the gate with a buyer, we want to present all available options. So number 1 is you're going to have options based on your criteria. Number 2 is you're going to have options based on your location. Number 3 is you're going to have options based on your price point. So I tell them straight out the gate when I'm meeting with them, if you don't like the inventory of houses that you're receiving, there may come a time in this journey where you're going to want to see new stuff, and you're going to hit like a brick wall, and essentially like, well, what else is out there? I would rather cast the widest net absolutely possible and then tighten that net up. That way you could have said yes or no to things and then tighten it up versus start off, this is what we want. Let's keep looking. Let's keep looking. Because when you start to have scope creep, you actually waste a ton of time, and then it just creates a lot of confusion for them and for you. So I would rather start off from day one, the absolute widest net possible on all 3 fronts, and then tighten it up. Okay. And I tell them, I don't want to come back to this meeting again. I don't want to have another buyer consultation to reestablish our foundation. Because when we set them up on an auto notification on the RealTrack system, I'm actually designing their search. I don't want to do this again with you. I'd rather do it one time right now than have to do it twice. So when we are looking for the criteria, you're literally trying to push the boundaries of their criteria. And I tell them this, I tell them like overtly out the gate, everything you tell me, I'm going to try to push back on it. When you tell me you have to have 4 bedrooms, and I ask you, what is the usage of the bedrooms because you only have 1 child, and you tell me that there's an office, will you accept a house like over off of Edmondson Pike? There's a couple of neighborhoods that were built by Pulte. And some of the floor plans, when you first enter the house, there is a dining room on the left-hand side, and there's an office on the right. The office has glass closing doors. The reason why it's called an office, not a bedroom, is because it does not have a closet. So to be a bedroom, it has to have a closet and it has to have a window. So in that floor model, it is the exact size, square footage, price, location that you're looking for, but that will not be a bedroom. You're telling me that you would not accept that as a house with that office right there at the front. No, that's perfect. We'll take that. Okay, great. So can we agree that this criteria is not 3 bedroom or 4 bedroom? It's actually 3. Can we agree? Yes. Okay, I'm going to send you 3 bedroom houses, like your square footage question the other day. So all the criteria that they're giving me, I'm trying to push back. We really want a big backyard. Okay, when you say a big backyard, how big is that? I don't know, like a half acre? Well, what are you on right now? We're in a condo. Okay, so every yard's a big backyard for you. You know, like, how do you know what's a half acre? Because there may be some great, like in Creve Hall, there's some great half acre lots. There's also some really awesome lots that are not on busy streets that are in a cul-de-sac that you have 0.4 acres, but you have an area behind that's not yours, but you have all the space in the world. So you're telling me you would not want to see that house at 0.4 acres. We'd be open to 0.4. So I'm trying to loosen every time they give me a criteria, I'm trying to challenge it. The location, when they tell me we want to be 15 minutes from work, I want to know the mileage. Okay, I'm trying to push that a little bit farther. I'm trying to go the max location possible. And I typically will take what they say and invert it. So like, for example, they say, we want to live in Franklin. So what I hear you saying is, if it had a Thompson Station address, you would absolutely say no to the perfect house in the perfect location, in the perfect price, move-in ready. You would say no to that because it does not say the word Franklin. No, we're open to Thompson Station. Great. I'm glad we solved this right now, because when we're in the car, I may have heard Franklin and you may have been open to Thompson Station. So I'm just trying to press the boundaries of the location as far as I possibly can. It's easier to filter down than it is to filter up. The next thing is price. There's something really powerful about taking away someone's thoughts. And what I mean by that is, if you're pushing someone's budget, they could be thinking like, you're just trying to get me to spend more money so you can make more commission. I know what you're doing. So I just would rather just be super overt and obvious and clear, like, hey, you're probably thinking that I'd probably frame it like this. If I was you in your position and I was looking to hire an agent, I would be thinking like, you're wanting to push my budget as much as you can because you're going to get paid a commission off of this thing. That's what I would be thinking. You may not be thinking that. That's what I'd be thinking. Hear me clear on this. I do not want you to spend $1 more than you have to. I hope you can spend as least as possible so that you're not house poor whenever you have your monthly payment. But what I want you to understand is sometimes certain associations that are out there is going to have like $50 a month. You could have bought a $10,000 more house in another neighborhood if you're over a different county line, because the county taxes, your money from a monthly payment standpoint could be a little bit more. So I want to know what your absolute max budget that you would absolutely say no way, no Jose to. I want to know what that number is. And then I want to look up over a little bit higher. And here's why. I tell them, let's just say for talking purposes, your absolute drop dead max budget is $500,000. You cannot spend $1 over $500. That's it. But you really want to be at $450. Normally they'll say we're going to be at $450. And you want to not feel like you're trying to be a salesman and sell them to $500. I hear you at $450. My hope is that you can get it at $425. If I was in your position, I'd be thinking you're trying to make money off of me. Here's why I'm saying your max. I would rather have an eye on property that is above where you want to be, because if they have a price change, I don't want there to be the perfect house that fits your school system, your price point, move-in ready, timeline, everything about it is like check the box. Yes. And it's perfect at $515. It's set out there for a couple weeks and this house is not selling. And the agent talks to their client like, you know what? We probably need to price the house at $500,000. When they make that price adjustment to $500,000, you're immediately going to get an auto notification. And you're like, yes, it's in our budget. But you know what also happened? There's about 75 other people out there who just got that exact same email. And now all of a sudden you're in a competitive environment. Does that make sense? I would rather know that that house exists and is sitting out there over your threshold. That would be interesting. And here's what I want to do. I want you to stay very disciplined to your budget. I do not want you to spend more money, but I want you to call me. And I want you to say, hey, Jonathan, we love this house. I don't want us to go look at it. I don't want to waste each other's time to go look at houses that you're not willing to buy. I want you to call me and say, we love this house. And if it was in for sale for our budget, we would have interest in it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call the agent. I'm going to tell the agent, listen, best of luck in selling your house. I know for your sellers, I hope they sell it for them. But in the event they get tired, in the event that the market has a little bit of fatigue and passes it up, this is a great option for my client. And I would love to show it to them. I don't want to break rapport with my clients and show them a house that's outside their price point because they're not going to feel heard. But I want to tell you up front that we're interested. I'm interested. I want to show that to them. If you ever are thinking about a price reduction, or if you're ever thinking there's a possibility to show, please tell me. Please call me and tell me. I would love to show it. One of two things is going to happen. Well, three things going to happen. One is they're not going to listen to you and they're just going to do their price reduction anyway. That would have happened anyway. But at least you've already kind of had an eye on it, and you know, like, this is the one we've been waiting on. Number two, agents sometimes have had a price recommendation that the seller just has been resistant to and not listening to, where the agent's like, yes, your guy. Yes, please go show that property. Yes, we are overpriced. Yes, I would advocate for this. Please, like, I'm a fan of this. So you're gonna have an agent that probably agrees with you and like will encourage you to go show it. It's at 5:15, but please show it at 5. I would advocate for this. Hey guys, the agent's on our side. The agent feels like 500 is the number. The third option is they actually will call you before they make a price reduction. They've had no competition. The fish were not biting at 5:15. The house is set there. When they drop it to 500, there will be competition. There will be a bunch of people who schedule showings. You almost get a window of opportunity to look at the house with no competition, to put your best foot forward. So the client's going to feel like you pursued a house off the market. The client's going to feel heard. The client's going to feel like they were guided. The client's going to feel like you went to bat for them, that you solved a solution, and you didn't have a lot of competition to get bid up. That's the ideal. So when we talk about your price point, I want to push that boundary as far as we possibly can to open up options. And I want to tell the client what we're trying to do, so they're not like, whoa, you're not listening to me. We can't spend that much money. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you save time. I'm trying to help you save money. Here's our strategy for these upper end homes. We are not looking at them unless they are going to tell us that they're open. We're going to stay disciplined. We're aiming at 450 and below, but we want to know. So I almost kind of look at it, if you remember Tim the Toolman Taylor, where his next door neighbor Wilson would always like look over the fence. It's just his eyeballs. All I want to do is I just want to look over the fence. I just want to know what's out there that could be our next house. I just don't want to compete over it. So the inventory options are as follows. I tell all the clients there are 3 ways that we're going to find your house. We have the existing market that is on the MLS. These are available right now. These are active listings or even under contract showing. These houses are out there and available. The next thing that we have is option number 2. These are new homes, but this is a more wait and see approach. We're waiting for things to emerge on the market. These are new listings. These are back on the market. What I just explained to you, homes that, in price changes. That's what I just explained to you. They drop the price. I don't want it to hit our inbox. I want to get to it early. So I don't want to compete over new options if necessary. Then there is section number 3, off the market pursuit. I'm going to share with you a couple ways right at the end of the day about how we pursue off the market homes. And so I tell the client we're trying to move through this first phase as fast as possible. I'm trying to then keep an eye out on the second phase, but we are then pursuing the third phase. So here's what this is going to look like. In the presentation is just talking about like what neighborhoods do you want to be in, regions of the city do you want to be in. This is probably where I can be the most beneficial in your dollar per hour as an agent. Think about those 3 phases. We have the entire existing inventory of homes, and say that it's like, 65 houses that meet their criteria. I tell them in the meeting, we are trying to narrow these 65 houses down to a very manageable few, 10 to 15 homes. That's what we're looking for. Once we, in a sense, go through all these 65 homes, we're going to dismiss those from our mind forever. We're not going to waste our time looking at those again. While you're looking at your favorite options, I'm going to go through all 65 options. I'm going to make recommendations. You're going to make recommendations. And then we're going to arrive at these are the ones that we're going to look at together. Once we go out there and look at it together, this first section is gone forever. We're not going to keep coming back to dirty water. I mean, it's like, really? We're back here again? We could have done this weeks ago. So we're going to set up an auto notification. This is based on their location, price, and criteria. We just discussed that. The next thing is they're going to start to receive daily email results. And so those daily email results are going to come to their inbox. That's then we've instructed them, pre-frame, not reframe, instructed them to choose 10 to 15. The reason why someone may get 20 or 28 houses, like you said, is because you didn't tell them a target. I don't want to spend all days and weeks looking at 25, 30 houses. No, we got to ask better clarifying questions and match what you're looking for in the office versus just driving all of town. I'd rather sit there for hours searching through the listings and really honing in that list than just driving. Pick 10 to 15 houses. And I'm going to say, you're going to make recommendations to me. I'm going to look at the ones that you've come up with. I'm going to take the ones that I've come up with, and we're going to build our list. I may take some out that I don't feel is good. We've looking at your list, that these are the ones that you would not buy. So we're going to hone this list down. From there, as we're searching houses, and I tell them this in the office so that it's not kind of awkward in the car. We are only going to keep 3 houses at a time. Only 3. And I tell them in our office before we ever get in the car, here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the first house, and I'm going to ask you to write down positives and negatives on the first house. We're going to go to the second house. I'm going to ask you the same thing. We're going to do the third house. When we get to the 4th house, I'm going to force you to a decision. I'm going to tell you, you have to eliminate one. And so which one of the 4 are you going to eliminate? I literally take away the MLS sheet. I do not ever want them to consider it, and I put it in my door or throw it in the back seat. I throw it away at the next house. I only want them to keep 3 options in their hand at any given time. The best decision-making process is when you're there physically, not when you go home, think about it. I'm going to think about it overnight. I'm going to lay everything out and talk about it. Think about it. Because you start to lose the sensitivity about how you felt in the house. I want to make real decisions in the house right then. So we get to house 5, it's time to throw one away. Get to house 6, it's time to throw one away. So when you force them to only keep 3 houses at a time, they're going to make better decisions. And the decision can be no. So then that brings us down to the final house. I'm going to actually cover this in one additional slide, but the final house. And I'm going to, you guys know that RealTrax is the source. And so let me just share with you, I put this up here for the client because I want them to understand how information is disseminated. And I tell them the state of Tennessee, the associations, all have come together, and RealTrax is the source of all information, period. Every other website is getting fed from RealTrax. Then you have Zillow over here that's really third party. They're paying for leads. So it's in their best interest to have outdated information to have lead count. So the point being is I do not want you to look at any other website than the RealTrax in the house I sent you. And I tell them, here's what's going to happen. Your friend's going to text you a house from Zillow. Here's what's going to happen. You're just going to get really curious and jump on Redfin, or you're going to get really curious and just be on a RE/MAX site, or you're going to get really curious and see something on Facebook. It's going to be so hard for you to resist sending it to me. You're going to send it to me. I just want to tell you how I'm going to respond when you send it to me. No thanks. Or this is not what we agreed upon. I'm telling you, this is the source. I want to only give you the source. Everything else I will not respond to. So do we just have a clear understanding today that if you ever send me a Zillow listing, I will not respond to you? Yep. Okay, great. We're on the same page. This is very helpful. So I'm getting agreement all the way along the way, so I don't have to be like, God, why do you keep sending me these other listings? Does that make sense? I explained to them about third-party information. You guys are going to have this. So I'm not going to go through this right now. What third-party websites versus the source. So in a sense, I'm like, this is accurate and in real time. There's some inaccuracies and it's delayed. So if you're looking on other websites, you're choosing to have outdated, irrelevant information. I only want you to have accurate information. Oops. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to help you.
Thank you.
You have portrayed what I've explained a million times. It'd be nice
I can-
to be able to send that.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Step 3, viewing properties. So here is my best practices solutions for you. The goal in this, remember that funnel that had the one house? Here's the way I can save you time. What we're trying to do is to establish a benchmark home for you to compare all other houses to. If you use the word benchmark house, it kind of takes the pressure off. Because sometimes people feel that they're being sold, like, oh gosh, you're trying to sell me this house. No, I'm not. I'm just trying to establish a benchmark home. I'm trying to force you to a decision of 3. We're trying to pick the win. Because after today, when we look at those 10 or 15 houses, when something hits your inbox tomorrow, when you see a house pop up on Friday, when you see something come on next week, I want to compare it to this house that we saw over on Trousdale. I just want to measure everything to Trousdale, If we find a better house that now either A, it's going to serve as our new benchmark house, or B, we're going to buy the thing. Because sometimes people find the benchmark, they're just not ready to move forward. Like, I don't know, this is the best one, but we're not so sure we want to live here. Great. We're going to measure everything. If we find a better one, is this our new benchmark? Is this the one? So whenever you can kind of like, sometimes people don't want to tell you the one because they're like, if I tell the house that I like the most, they're about to start selling me. I can kind of alleviate that fear by just like, is this our new benchmark? Is this our new benchmark? We're going to compare everything to this. They will let you know if that benchmark now is going to move to become their house. Pick 10 to 15 houses. I tell them I want the MLS number, not the address, because sometimes there's A's and B's. Sometimes there's numbers. Like sometimes there's courts and circles and avenues. I have got to houses like, yeah, this is not what I sent you. That's what the address was. Oh, no. I don't know. This is avenue. Oh, we're nowhere even close. I didn't schedule that appointment. Send me the MLS number. That's like the real information. Look at all homes in one day. I do not want to go 3 here, 3 there, 3 there, 3 there. I tell them, I want to look at everything in one fell swoop. If we're going to make great decisions, I want you to take off work. I want to schedule on a Saturday. I want to look at everything in one because it's going to help us get. Was that the house a couple days ago that we looked at that had that cat smell? I can't remember. I don't want you to forget what it was. I want to look at them very tight one to another. That way you have a strong sense of comparison, and now we can make better decisions. I want you to write down the pros and cons, and then I want you to only keep 3 options. Those 3 options, which one is going to be the benchmark? I need to know your benchmark. That way, as I'm looking for houses, I'm measuring everything to this house. Okay? When you take that methodology, you can get through the first phase of all the available inventory really quickly, and you can remove that from the plate forever going forward. That then says, okay, if I'm going to spend my time looking for off-the-market opportunities, now I know exactly what they would say yes to. I got something to compare it to. Does that make sense? Step 4 is negotiating an offer. So in every buyer consultation, I use this slide right here, and I'm going to draw on this for a second. The National Association of Realtors say that a balanced market is 6 months inventory. This is our supply on the market, 6 months. I literally, actually, let me just show you this. If I were to go to, let's just say we go on RealTracs real fast. I take their questionnaire and I tell them, I say, we're going to draw your search for real here in a second, but I want to teach you something that's going to help us make better decisions in the house. So let's just say for talking purposes, they have they've done a very good job filling out their questionnaire. They've identified that Creve Hall makes a lot of sense for their family. They have said that they want to be under $500,000 in Creve Hall. They want mature trees. They want a nice backyard. They want 3 bedrooms. I'm just going to do a pretty general search here. But let's just say that is where they want to be. I'm going to treat this as if we're looking at past inventories as well. So I'm going to click everything that's coming soon, under contract showing, and then closed. And I'm going to go back the past year. And I'm going to show you why I'm going to do that. Sometimes the buyer, have you ever been in a relationship with a buyer where they feel like the house is overpriced? They feel like, no, it's not worth that. Okay, I'm telling you it is worth that, but you don't feel like it's worth that. And now we feel like a bit of a tug of war. Yeah, you're just trying to sell me this house because you want to get a commission, and you're trying to tell me. Sometimes buyers don't feel like you're advocating for them. You're trying to sell them a more expensive house. Again, take away their thoughts. Hey, if I was in your position, I'd be saying, oh, this realtor's going to make more money if they sell a bigger house. Of course, they're going to tell me it's not overpriced. Before I ever get in the car, before I ever show them a house, I'm going to show them what the market's doing. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a quick comp. I would be a lot more specific in their price point, but I actually show them this. I do this exercise with them, and I just scroll right down here at the bottom to all the closed inventory in that area. And you see right here where it says list price is $390. Actually, let me zoom in for you. List price is $398, and sales price is $399. So it's almost $2,000 over asking, okay? And then I'm going to look at the days on the market. And so the days on the market average is 12 right here. So those two numbers are important for this reason. If I go back to my chart and I'm trying to educate them on what a balanced market is, I show them, I'm like, okay, if a balanced market where sellers and buyers have an even advantage, that's 6 months, 12 days is less than a month. So what we have here is where you're looking to spend time is right here. The days on the market is 12. The list price to sales price is like 100% plus. I mean, it's like 398 to basically 400. So in the consultation, I want you to know that, because when we're in a house, if the house has been listed for under 12 days, this isn't the past year average. If the house has been listed under 12 days, and I'm telling you, you need to make a decision. I'm not trying to make you make a rush decision. I'm not trying to be a high pressure salesman to get you in a contract. We can't sleep on it. There is not a lot of time. Keep in mind that a lot of these houses were coming soon, maybe for a couple of days, so it may only be like 7 days on average for the past year. And there was like 200 plus listings out there on the market. So there's a big sample size. When I tell you you need to make a full price offer, I'm not doing that to make $37 more to save $55,000. I'm doing that to help you get in this house. So I want to tell you that sitting in this office right now, because when we get out there in the heat of battle and I tell you, you need to make an offer now if you like this house, and you need to pay full price, and if we're lucky, we might get it. I'm not being a high pressure salesman. I'm doing that based on a principle of the market. I'm doing that based on an exact due diligence on the market. This is where you're buying. So do you have any questions? And I'm like, I'm trying to like, do you have any questions? I mean, so when we're out there and you need to make an offer if you like this house. You need to pay top dollar if you like this house. I'm not using high pressure tactics. So when we use this as a foundation, and I'm in that house in Creve Hall, I'm like, hey, remember the consultation when I talked about that whole balanced market? Remember the consultation when I said 12 days is the average in the past year? Remember the consultation when I said it's over 100% list price to sales price? Well, now we're standing in it. It's time for us to make a decision. If we have to think about it, or your dad has to fly in to approve it, you will not own this property. That's the reality. What do you want to do? Now that takes us from being a salesperson to an educator. Like, we're actually telling them the why behind it, but we did it in a pre-framed way to where we don't break rapport with them and they don't feel like we're just selling them in the moment. If you just grab coffee at Starbucks and show them a couple houses and don't do this and then start to sell them, oh yeah, they're going to feel that you got commission breath. Okay? You guys all know about offers and negotiation, but I do tell the client there's an offer counteroffer process. There's earnest money. I explain to them about what earnest money is. I explain to them about the contingencies. I explain to them about the seller paid closing cost. I explain to them about what we do in a multiple offer situation if we are to find ourselves in that. And I explain to them about a commitment letter. If they didn't get pre-approved, you got to get me this commitment letter, because I definitely do not want to be making offers without a commitment letter. That's going to strengthen our offer. The contract to close process, I explained to them about the inspections, the appraisals, the financing, and the home sale, and then closing day. So we're wrapping up. We've got 5 minutes left. There's a couple things that I wanted to share with you. One being this decision point tool, and we may have to pick up on this tomorrow. I've got 2 slides I want to show you, and then we will be done. The decision point tool. Oh my gosh, my brain and my fingers aren't on the same page. So for our clients, I show them this in the consultation, and I say, this came from George Bush's book, The Decision Point. And there comes a moment to where it's time to put up or shut up. There's a time to where we got to make an offer or not. Sometimes they're trying to evaluate between 2 properties. Is it this one or is it this one? Is it 3 properties? Or should we say yes or no to this one property? The point being is, at the point of decision, I want to have a predictable framework by which I'm able to guide the client to say yes or no to something. I find that a lot of agents just forego doing this. They want to buy the house, it's full price, it's going to be quick, let's just do it. you really miss an opportunity to demonstrate your competency. First off. Second off is you miss an incredible opportunity to show how you educate and you have the heart of a teacher. You miss an incredible opportunity to show them that they are making a good or a bad decision. An incredible opportunity for them to tell people like, man, I mean, we were buying this house, but they really gave us this tool to help us make a good decision. If you don't do this just out of ease, you're missing out on an incredible opportunity to be able to get referrals from it to make an impression. So I highly recommend doing it as a standard. So basically what I want to do is I want to find out, when did the house previously sell? I want to find out how much do they pay? I want to find out how much do they owe? Sometimes, not in this market necessarily, but in the past, people are upside down on their houses. And what they owe and what they're, you actually can't make a low offer because they owe too much on it per the tax records. It looks like a bad mortgage history. Then I do some research on the house. CMAs based on the closings, the actives, the under contracts, the expireds. Guys, this one right here where it says the tax record square footage in the MLS square footage, there are agents out there who will lie to you. And there's agents out there who will make up square footage numbers. And they're like, oh, information believed to be accurate but not guaranteed. That's what the MLS is. It's not guaranteed. I had a client one time who bought a house and the appraisal came in really, really, really low on the square footage. Unfortunately, the amount was great, but it was like the highest price per square foot in the history of the neighborhood by a long shot. The house was about 200 square feet smaller. Well, we were paying about $200 a square foot at the time. That's $40,000 in difference. We go to the tax records afterwards. I mean, he's upset about it, and we did not have a way to get out of the contract because the contract's contingent upon appraisal. The contract's not contingent upon the agent giving you correct information. We just believed it. I go to the tax records, it's off. I asked the agent, she's like, it was right over 2,000. It was like 2,047 square feet. Well, no, actually it's like 1,794 square feet. There's a big difference on this. Well, that's what the client told me. There was no way to verify this. They literally made that. I believe the agent just said, we want to be over 2,000 square feet just to get into a bigger home. And it worked. So my client was very frustrated at me because I should have known this. That's what they felt. I've never had that encounter before. So I made this a standard that I'm going to check the tax records in the MLS and I'm going to at least raise the question before we make an offer. So I had a client do this one time and I caught an agent lying. And they were lying about 300 square feet. But at the size of the house, I mean, what's 300 square foot? I mean, it kind of, was it the attic space? I mean, you kind of get a 3,700 square foot house, you kind of lose context of what the square footage is. So I called her and said, hey, I'm going to structure my offer that if there's a material shortage in square footage per the appraisal, that we have the right to come back and negotiate this. She's like, we will never do that. I said, I'm going to include this as a clause. If there's a material shortage in square footage, we have the right to come back and negotiate, because what you're telling me and what the tax records are two different things. We'll let the appraiser decide. She was not happy. It ended up blowing up the deal over this issue right here alone. I went back and looked, and that woman, for the last 3 years, on every single listing that she had for 3 years, she rounded up to the closest 500 square feet. So it was like 3,200, she'd round up to 3,500. If it was 2,800, she'd round up over 3,000. I called her broker. I'm like, look at what she's doing. Go back in all of her past 3 years. She's doing this as a practice. And I called him and her out, and they said, well, you know that MLS is information believed to be accurate but not guaranteed that the buyer must verify. I'm like, we go into contract, we don't verify until the appraisal, and then there's nothing to do. So why do I bake in here? Is I want to make sure that we're getting what we paid for. I want to make sure, has this listing expired and withdrawn? One time I had a client, we could not give this house away for 6 months. Could not give it away. The client calls me and goes like, you know what? I'm tired of trying to sell this dang house. Take it off the market and relist it for $20,000 more. I said, we haven't been able to give it away for 3 months or 6 months. We took it off the market. We relisted it on Monday for $20,000 more. Immediately, we went from 300 to 320. Immediately, I get a call from an agent. Hey, if I send you a cash offer for 310, would you take it right now? We just removed it after 6 months at 300. They were looking over 300, and it showed up in their search. We were at 299, and he thought they were getting a deal by paying $10,000 less. I'm like, oh my gosh, We couldn't give it away and you just paid $10,000 more. You just need to see did it expire and was it withdrawn since the last time it sold? You will find that there has been people who have failed to sell and they have bumped their price up for no good reason. Hey, help me understand, why did you increase your price $20,000 from last week? Fishing? So I'm not going to bore you with this, but you will have this as a resource. This section right here is designed for the agent. I call the agent and I ask the agent these clarifying questions. Now, let me just tell you something. A lot of times agents are not going to want to tip their hat and they're not going to want to tell you everything that they know about a property. They don't want to shoot their sellers in the foot. So here's how I frame that call to get these questions answered. The questions are, why are they selling? How did you determine your asking price? Why do you think the house has not sold yet? Are there any known repair issues? Have you ever had any other offers? Why they fall through? Have they found another house to purchase? What's the seller's ideal time frame to close? And what improvements have they made to the property? These are the questions I want the agent to answer so that I can go back to my client and tell them what our recommended purchase price should be. So there's this question right here. Why do you think the house has not sold yet? One time I called an agent, it was the first day on the market, and I said, hey, why do you think this house hasn't sold yet? And they're like, it's the first day on the market. I'm like, yeah, it should have never hit the market. This house is awesome. Like, I can't believe you didn't have multiple offers before you even, and they started laughing. I mean, it didn't matter if it's been 1 day or 2 years. Ask the question. It's amazing the amount of responses that will come back. So whenever I call the agent, here's how I set up getting these questions. I want to align. So picture yourself being shoulder to shoulder with the agent. I want to align with them. We're on the same team. I call the agent and I don't say, hey, my client is interested in making an offer in your house. I'm not tipping my hand. What I call it is I call them and say, hey, listen, I took my client out there to look at your house. I saw it online. I thought it looked great. And I took my client out there. Not like they took me, I took them. Saw your house online, took my client out there to look at it. We've looked at a number of houses. I'll shoot you straight. This is my personal favorite house. If I had to pick between all the houses we've looked at, this would be the one that I would select. I would love to see my client buy your house. So that's yet to be determined. But I think if you were able to answer a couple questions for me, it may help me sell my client on writing you an offer. So I'm asking them to help me help my client to make an offer on the house, right? But if I call them and say, my client's ready to make an offer on the house, I got some questions for you. Not talking. I'm not going to shoot you straight. But if I call them and tell you, I love your house, I think this is the best option for them. I believe I can bring you an offer if I can get some clarifying questions. I just want to go back and talk to them. They're going to be more inclined to align with you and help you. So that's how I get the answers to these questions. The next section is the buyer. I've got questions for you as a buyer. What improvements are you going to make to this property? Remember my story yesterday with Taylor who bought the property, did a bunch of improvements? I want to know what you have in your mind for this house before you buy it, because you may overbill for the area. Not every dollar spent is a dollar earned. Who will be the end buyer? Let's begin with the end in mind. One day you're going to have to sell this house. You may not have an aversion to a busy street, but someone who has a dog, a kid, or loves to entertain and have parking will have an aversion to this street. If you got these two options, this would be my second choice because of these factors. So who will be our end buyer? You're going to have a better end buyer. 10 out of 10 will say yes to this house. 5 out of 10 will say yes to this house. What's our exit strategy? So how are we going to get out of this house in the future? If you buy this house, we both know that basement has some water issues. I know that you're getting a deal now on this property because it does have some moisture in the basement. But if you buy this house and one day you want to sell it, I do believe you need to go ahead and budget in our offer. You need a budget to hire B-Dry to get this foundation right and make sure there's no moisture in here so that you can sell it in the future. So what's your exit strategy? Next is, do you want closing costs including your offer? Do we want to roll this in? How much closing costs? Let's call the lender and find out how much closing costs needs to be included in the offer. What's our prepaids for taxes and insurance? What's our target price that's going to be a win for us? And then what should our initial offer be? If you're able to have a framework by which you guide that it's just one page, a framework to guide that discussion, they're going to feel really good about making an educated decision versus being sold. Hey, I think you need to pay top dollar. This just hit the market. This house is hot. It's a hot neighborhood. It's going to go quick. I try not to speak into generalizations. Remember I said yesterday, if you speak in generalizations, that means you don't have to think. It's a hot neighborhood. It's a hot property. It's going to go quick. Here's why I'd say you need to make a decision. Remember when we sat in that meeting, 12 days on the market? Remember we sat in that meeting, it was over 100% list price to sales price? That's why I'm telling you, I think you need to make a quick decision. Based on these factors, we believe that this property is hot and it's going to sell quickly. So I'm not going to make a general statement unless I can back it up with information. Make sense? So this is the decision point tool that you have available to you. I would strongly recommend using this as the only way to negotiate or decide between 2 or 3 houses. My last slide, and we're done for the day. Pro tip on this for the decision point tool was tell the buyer what they want, what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. Sometimes buyers are wanting you to like agree with them. There is supreme power, trust building, rapport, influence of telling someone, I don't agree with you. No, I would not buy this house. Mackenzie has done so well in her career because I have not seen too many agents who will work so hard to talk people out of properties. She educates to not buy a property. And she's, pretty fun about it. She's like, guys, I'll tell you, I'm going to have a really hard time selling this house for you in the future. This house is not going to be an easy resale. I know that you like it, but there's like 7 out of 10 people who would not buy this house. Here's the reasons why. This other house we looked at is an easier resale. You need to make your best decision, but I just want you to hear my voice and hear my perspective on it. I would say no to this house, but if you want to go for it, we can go for it. I wouldn't do it though. She really does a good job building rapport and trust. That's why people keep coming back to her and referring her tons and tons of business. That's why she's top 10 agent in all of Middle Tennessee. The people who are above her have large teams. She's a solo producer. She did $75 million in the past 12 months. You don't get to that if you're not really, really, really good at trust building, building rapport, educating, and people are like, whoa, we would have totally made this decision. Man, thank you so much for getting us out of that situation. So tell your buyer what they need to hear, not what they want to hear, or not what you want them to hear. Last slide, and this is probably one of the most timely slides given our current market, is right up at the top of our presentation, John, under servicing a buyer, slide number 319, our off the market strategy. So right now we talked about, we look at the available inventory, we keep an eye, a wait and see approach for houses entering the market. How do we go find property off the market? Number 1, looking at expireds and withdrawals. My recommendation in this market, there's not a lot of expireds and withdrawals. That's not happening. So you may need to go back maybe a year, maybe even 2 years back to see who was interested in selling their house 2 years back. What you want to do is you want to sort the address ascending and descending. And if there was an expired and then closed, that they actually made a repeat effort and did close it. You're looking for an expired and withdrawn that never closed out, never came back on active. They made it, they tried and failed. Maybe they rented it out, or maybe they just decided to live there. That's a very easy way to call an agent like, hey, May of 2019, y'all tried to sell this house and it has never sold. This house would work great for my clients. Will you call your seller and see if they have any interest in selling? That's one way to go off the market. Number 2 is direct mail. When you take that questionnaire and you build out a buyer profile for direct mail, now you should start a direct mail campaign, a buyer looking for. We have a buyer looking for letter. If you follow the template, Mackenzie gets calls all the time from her buyer looking for mailers. But you have to start to directly pursue based on the benchmark house, based on their criteria. They will say yes to this. This is not like, yeah, if they find something, they find something. No. We're not spending money like looky-loos. They are ready to write an offer. So we have a template letter that's very direct and it converts very well. Number 3, for sale by owner, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, the Nextdoor app. Go look at these platforms. I find it really weird that real estate agents will totally just rain on for sale by owner, for sale by owners, you're leaving money on the table, like people lose money and they go for sale by owners. If that's true, you should be showing your clients for sale by owners. If that's really true, that means your client would get a better deal for sale by owner. For you to they don't know what they're doing. Okay, well, those are the best options if that's really true. So I just find that it's odd that the real estate community shades on for sale by owners, but yet they don't aggressively show for sale by owners. So you certainly want to call for sale by owner, check Facebook Marketplace, check Craigslist, check the Nextdoor app to find out what's out there. You probably want to make a preliminary phone call to make sure that you would be included in some way, whether you need to add it to the price or get an agreement from your client to pay you, but make sure that you're covered financially as you pursue that. Door knocking. I mean, a couple months ago, 6 weeks ago, I went out there and door knocked for 3 or 4 afternoons, just talking to people. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable for the first 5 door knocks, but after a while you get sweaty and you're like, okay, I'm in a groove. Let's talk to some people. Let's get this thing going. It got easier and easier and easier. People don't door knock. That's kind of a thing of the past. And the majority of the people, even though they weren't ready to sell, the majority of people are like, man, I respect the hustle. Man, I wish my agent would get out there and hustle like this. Who are you? Where do you work? What do you do? People respect the hustle. So door knock.
So you're door knocking to find people who may be ready to sell.
Hey, desperate times call for desperate measures. There's no inventory. How much? What's your make me move price? You know, everybody has a number. Call agents who sold the house 2 years ago. So I said expired and withdrawns, go back. This one right here is a little bit different. I want to go back in time and I want to see who sold this house 2 years ago. And then from 2 years ago, I want to go back 5 to 7 years. So it's basically from today, it's 7 years back. And I just want to call that agent. You sold a house in June of 2017. This house would be perfect for my client. I don't know if you still have a relationship with your seller or your buyer, but my clients would be interested in taking a look at it if they'd have any interest. I wish someone would call me like that about one of my old clients. It gives me a reason to call them like, hey, it's been 7 years since I've called you. Got somebody interested in buying your house. Are you even thinking about selling? I mean, it gives me a reason to call them. I don't know. I mean, if the number was right. I literally had a guy that I saw last week, past client. He goes, man, next door neighbors just sold for a big number. I can't believe it. He goes, I've had a couple agents call me. And I said, really, how'd that go? He goes, I gave him a number. I told him what I'd sell for. I'm thinking, oh, girl, I wish the agent would have called me. I'd have happily advocated for you to get that number. I'm getting cut out of the equation on that. So call the agent. The agent has a vested interest in selling the property. If they sell that property, they're going to help them find something else. So call the old agent. The next thing is call under contract. This is crazy. The MLS is now doing this. Used to, they did not have the buyer's agent's number. You go in there and see what's under contract for the houses that you like. They have the buyer's agent's number down there. Call the buyer's agent, like, if this contract falls through, I'll pay you an assignment. If you back out on account of inspection or you back out on account, I'll pay you $5,000 to assign the contract to me. Don't give it back to the seller to go back to the market with. Had a guy walk in here about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago for a closing. He actually was at the wrong place. He was supposed to be across the street at Bell Title to close. I said, oh, congratulations, are you buying or selling? He said, actually, neither. He goes, some crazy buyer paid me $300,000 to give them my contract. What? They paid you to buy your contract, $300,000? So call the under contract buyer's agent, see if they're going to perform on that contract. If not, try to buy it from them, get it assigned from them. That's an effective way to serve the buyer. The next thing is call the listing agent. So you call the buyer's agent. Now you call the listing agent. What's the chance this thing's falling through? You know, I don't know. Things kind of been rocky. I want to go ahead and be your first call. I want to go ahead and make an offer. If I give you an offer, can you put pressure on the other one? The next one is data mining. Nate does this all day. Voicemail drops. He can do voicemail drops. He can go SMS blast, and he can do direct email blast. So if you tell Nate what your buyer profile is, you have to have done the work with the buyer questionnaire, exactly what their benchmark house is, what they would say yes to. Then we'll put some weight behind it and bring some off the market cold call efforts. The last one that's not included in that would be the one looking over the fence. Look over the fence in a higher price point. Stay disciplined in your approach, contact the agent and say, if y'all were to be open to reducing your price, I'll show it. If not, I don't want to show it. So these are the 8, add that other one, 9, the 9 ways that I would recommend pursuing off the market houses if you have buyers that are stuck. All right. Is this helpful?
Sure.
All right. So we're done for the day. Went a little bit longer than I meant to, but I wanted to end on a good note with this because I know that sometimes y'all are working with buyers that are just really having a hard time. This is where you can turn over some rocks and get some momentum. As we end, thoughts, questions, concerns?
Do you have the decision point tool?
Yep. Did I already delete it? All right, next question while I'm printing this off.
So,
I'm listening.
okay. So did I understand you correctly to say that you're telling the clients that the way you look for houses is on MLS, on Realtor.com, not Zillow, not these others? Is that what you said?
1,000%.
Okay.
Real tracks only.
So that means all the for sale by owners on Zillow, you would not consider.
For sale, that list is different. Listed houses, real tracks only. Non-listed houses, all over. Listed, non-listed. Make sense?
No, I'm not.
If it's listed on the MLS as a realtor represented house, I'm only looking at real tracks. If it's a for sale by owner, that's not listed a listing. That's not a listing. Like a listing house is listed by the real estate agent.
Okay. So you consider for sale by owners not listed houses?
Correct.
Okay.
Is it listed on the MLS? It's for sale. It's not listed. Like it's a realtor term. It's like, are you a real estate agent or are you a realtor? A realtor has gone into the association. An agent has their license. A listed house has been listed by an agent on the MLS. For sale by owner home it's available. It's for sale. It's not listed. I just printed that off, Bree. If you don't mind bringing those. Yeah. You do the digging. Do not tell your client to look. You do the digging.
I do the digging for the for sale by owners is what you're saying.
That list that I just showed you, you are 100% responsible for every bit of that. Nobody else.
Okay. Okay.
What other questions we have? That it? There you go. Guys, I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to talk about listings tomorrow. And we did not get through that checklist, but at least you have the checklist. If you read through it and get stuck, ask me.